Chapter 1405. Chongqing. She really did not want to admit that the woman who looked like a human trafficker was her mother. Mother, God-slaying. Chongqing stepped forward and was about to salute when she suddenly saw the long saber worn by the woman's waist. A trace of astonishment flashed across her eyes. Two God-slaying sabers? Could it be that the foreign woman did not steal her mother's saber and she misunderstood? That was true. The palace was heavily guarded and her mother was strong. It was almost impossible to break through the layers of obstacles and steal the God-slaying saber. What's wrong? The woman asked her with a smile. Chongqing recounted everything that had happened just now in great detail and said with slight embarrassment, I was reckless and almost caused an unjust case. It's good to know one's mistake and correct it. Just send someone to withdraw the order. If you meet him, send someone to give him some silver as compensation. Chongqing whispered. The four of them got on the carriage. Wuxia took the initiative to put a curtain hat on the woman's face. Fushou sat on the woman's lap. He seemed to be very used to this kind of intimate interaction. He asked with a smile, Your Majesty, where are we going? The flower festival is also a birthday. We are going out for a spring parade and have fun with the people. The woman smiled and said, Does Fushou not like to go? Fushou pursed his lips and said, Of course not, but... His eyes wandered and looked pitifully at Crown Princess Chongqing as if asking if he could say it. Chongqing said, Today seems to be the death anniversary of Fushou's birth mother. He is very filial. I am afraid it is not good for him to play freely. The woman's expression froze for a moment. I see Fushou is very filial. Touching the small knot on Fushou's head, Fushou showed a shy smile. For him, His Majesty's praise was as precious as his father's. One sentence could make him happy for a long time. There were many tourists outside. Wuxia and the others were dressed plainly. The woman and Chongqing wore a curtain hat to cover their faces. No one discovered their identity. Fushou insisted on walking on his own. He held the woman in one hand and Wuxia in the other. He ran 2 steps with a smile and suddenly jumped up. Fly. Chongqing followed a step or two behind the three. Watching Fushou swing, she could not help but curl her lips and say, Childish. Fushou didn't hear her words and continued to play. The 2 adults were also happy to cooperate. The woman looked back at her daughter and said with a smile, Chongqing wants to try too? Chongqing looked at her mother, the grand tutor, and herself. She coldly rejected this unreasonable suggestion. Although she was still young, she had grown very quickly. She was almost as tall as a 13 or 14-year-old boy. With his height, how could he imitate Fushou, who was fat and short, to play on the swing? The 4 of them were like an ordinary family taking a stroll in the spring. When they were tired, they sat on the ground and tasted the food they had prepared early in the morning. Fushou would eat independently, but he was not skilled. He often smeared food residue on the corner of his mouth, and the woman tirelessly helped him wipe it. Chongqing looked at the 2 of them with mixed feelings until she handed over a handkerchief that emitted the fragrance of honey locust. Grand Tutor. Chongqing called out in slight embarrassment. Wuxia could not help but smile. He picked a few of Chongqing's favorite foods for her. Grand Tutor, I am no longer a child. Although he said so, his actions were honest and he didn't hesitate to eat. The Grand Tutor's culinary skills could crush the royal chefs. In my eyes, Your Highness is always a distance away from adulthood. As soon as he finished speaking, Fushou also noticed the situation. He shouted and opened his mouth. Fushou wants it too. No, the Grand Tutor prepared it for me. Why are you snatching it? Chongqing finished the plate in 2 or 3 bites. Fushou saw the situation and immediately gave up. Hum hum hum, hum carrot hum. Her Highness's sister could not argue with him. The family of 4 was eating. Chongqing caught a glimpse of a fiery red color from the corner of her eyes. Her gaze froze. That foreigner is here too? The woman asked in surprise. Foreigner? Which one? Chongqing pointed. Sure enough, she saw a voluptuous and strangely dressed woman leaning on the treetop with her arms crossed. While they were looking at Jiang Pingji, she was also looking at them. The knife in her arms is really similar to the god-slaying knife. No wonder you mistook it. The woman saw Jiang Pingji's face. She had no other reaction except for some admiration. Fushou was stunned for a moment. He suddenly said, This big sister helped Fushou just now. If she had not carried him over the wall to buy offerings, It would have been impossible for Fu Shou's small body to climb over the wall and leave the manor. Among the 4 people, only Wei Xi's reaction was slightly strange. His expression stiffened for a moment, but this strangeness was fleeting. It was difficult to see with the naked eye. If Jiang Pingji's observation was not excellent, she might have missed it. She said with a smile, "After searching for a long time, it turns out to be here. You stayed in Zixiao's spiritual world and disguised as him. You're obviously bullying him because he doesn't know how to use his spiritual energy to fight back, right?" Without waiting for Wei Xi to say anything, Jiang Pingji directly pulled out her knife and rushed down from the tree. The blade went straight for his face. The woman and Chongqing at the side saw the situation and were horrified. They seemed to want to stop her. Jiang Pingji's expression was slightly cold. She shouted at the 2 of them, "Get lost. Don't ruin my plan." As soon as she finished speaking, the originally lively place instantly became silent. The surrounding tourists turned into smoke and disappeared without a trace. Only Jiang Pingji and Wei Xi were left. Her blade did not have the slightest hindrance. She slashed at Wei Xi's vital parts. It was obvious that she wanted to kill him. Wei Xi's expression changed drastically. He barely managed to dodge the blade of the god-slaying knife. "This is Wei Xi. You want to kill him too?" Jiang Pingji spat and said disdainfully, "An 18th-tier imposter wants to be on par with my Zixiao. You're just standing there and I can smell the strong scent of an imposter. If I don't kill you, who should I kill? Do you really think you can impersonate me by wearing Zixiao's face?" Wei Xi's expression could not help but twist. When he saw Jiang Pingji's flamboyant red hair, his expression instantly darkened by 7 or 8 degrees. It was comparable to a constipated face. "I say, can you not make such an unsightly expression with Zixiao's face?" As she spoke, Jiang Pingji's attacks came like a storm. This was Wei Xi's spiritual realm. She and the imposter in front of her were considered outsiders. Their movements would be restricted. Under such circumstances they could only use force to fight. The imposter gritted his teeth and said, "You're indeed a child of the Jiang family. You're actually not dead yet." Jiang Pingji was stunned. "What do you mean?" The imposter refused to speak. Jiang Pingji was relentless. As the 2 of them fought, the imposter realized that something was wrong. He became more and more gloomy. "You feel it, don't you?" Jiang Pingji sneered. "Zixiao is an ordinary person, but his spiritual realm is exceptionally strong. It's almost comparable to your peak state. You could have chosen anyone, but you chose Zixiao. Aren't you courting death?" The imposter was stubborn. "That's impossible." Chapter 1406. With every word Jiang Pingji said, the imposter's face darkened. The mental brain of an ordinary person was very weak. He could tear it apart with a wave of his hand and cause irreversible mental damage to the original owner. Wei Xi's mental world was rather stable. It was like a sturdy cage that prevented creatures from breaking out of it. Even if Wei Xi had been reborn, his mental brain was at most slightly stronger than an ordinary person's, but it was not to this extent. What did this look like? It was like a trap that had been set long ago, waiting for the prey to take the bait. It was obvious who was the hunter and who was the prey. "Do you think you can kill me?" Seeing this, the imposter revealed a sinister smile. "How will you know if you don't try?" Jiang Pingji was not affected at all. Her god-slaying saber swept dangerously past the imposter's neck, leaving a long, bright red line. This injury was only slightly more serious than a mosquito bite on an ordinary person, but the imposter felt as if she was being burned by a raging fire. Her face quickly turned pale. "Bastard of the Jiang family." The imposter gritted her teeth and said, "If I had known this would happen, I would have killed them all back then." Jiang Pingji's eyes flashed dangerously after she heard this. She did not care about her background, but it did not mean that she would not get to the bottom of it if there was a hidden story. "This is the second time you've mentioned the Jiang family. What do you mean? Did it mean that the imposter in front of her came from the same world as her?" Seeing that Jiang Pingji's attack was slightly less aggressive, he smiled maliciously. "What do I mean? I'll kill your entire family." "What?" Jiang Pingji looked a little stunned. Her entire body froze for a moment. There was a flaw. The imposter was overjoyed. She switched from defense to offense and attacked Jiang Pingji's vital point. Unexpectedly, this was a flaw that Jiang Pingji deliberately revealed. Not only did she not let the imposter succeed, but she also flipped the handle of the saber. The blade pierced through the imposter's hand from top to bottom and stabbed it into the ground. Now we can have a proper talk. Jiang Pingji smiled wickedly and stepped on the imposter's back to prevent her from turning around. She grabbed the imposter's chin with one hand and forced her to look up at her. What did you mean by, kill my whole family? As you know, the god-slaying saber is just an ordinary saber against normal creatures. However, against a virtual spiritual creature like you, which is a combination of pure energy and mental strength, it is fatal. Even a small wound can cause great damage. The imposter snorted and ignored Jiang Pingji's threat. Jiang Pingji said, Tisk, aren't you quite strong-willed? Are you really determined not to confess? As she said that, the hand holding the hilt of the knife ground twice, the blade stirring the wound on the imposter's hand. With the wound as the center, the imposter's hands turned from solid to solid spiritual energy. Then the spiritual energy turned into blue light and was greedily absorbed by the god-slaying saber. Jiang Pingji clearly saw the fear and despair in the imposter's eyes. If you tell me I might spare your life. She coaxed the imposter with a seductive tone. The imposter snorted coldly. Of course she would not believe Jiang Pingji's words. Do you think I can't find out what I want to know if you refuse to tell me? Jiang Pingji bent down and used a little force with the tip of her foot to break the imposter's spine. She raised her hand and held his face as he rushed toward her. She sneered and said, Don't forget, this is Zixiao's spiritual brain region. You and I are both virtual bodies solidified by our spiritual consciousness. If one side is weak and the other is strong, then the weaker side is equivalent to running away in front of the stronger side. As long as I want to, I can destroy your virtual body. Tell me, what can you hide from me? After hearing that, the imposter's face turned as white as snow. I thought, with this face you would at least show some mercy. He was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. When a normal person saw their lover hurting them, most people would say, I don't believe it, I don't believe it. However, Jiang Pingji did not play by the rules and hit him even more fiercely. You're wearing Zixiao's face and acting coquettishly. Of course I can't tolerate it. How can I show mercy? As soon as she finished speaking, she let go of the imposter's chin, grabbed his hair and pressed him to the ground. An illusory but sticky flame appeared in the palm of her hand. Like a wildfire, it quickly spread from her palm to the imposter's head and limbs. Without waiting for the imposter to scream, Jiang Pingji let go of her hand. The god-slaying sword was afraid that the imposter would be incinerated by the flames, so it hurriedly increased the speed of absorption. In the time it took to take a breath, the imposter was completely incinerated. A small part of the totem on the body of the sword was completed. Jiang Pingji also obtained the information she wanted. She pulled the long sword out of the ground and found that the totem on the body of the sword was one size bigger, but it was still incomplete. It was obvious that the imposter was not the main body of the system. She curled her lips and said uninterestedly, Yeah, I thought it was a big fish. I didn't expect it to be another shrimp. She observed the size of the totem and found that 1/3 of the totem pattern on the body of the sword had been restored. Previously it was only 1/10. Although it was a shrimp, this small shrimp was fatter than the 2 systems that Jiang Pingji had killed. I felt that something was wrong when I didn't find the special carrier that the system was attached to. I didn't expect it to really be sliced. The system was really arrogant. It had sliced itself so many times in a row. Wasn't it afraid of being divided? Jiang Pingji hurriedly absorbed the information she wanted. Her expression became gloomy. She had never thought that the mystery of her past life would be revealed in this life. However, all of this was no longer important. It's more important to find Zixiao first. Jiang Pingji sheathed the god-slaying sword and hung it on her waist. Because of the commotion just now, all the living people in the spiritual world had disappeared. Only she and the architectural landscape were left. Where was Wuxia at this moment? Not long after Jiang Pingji killed the imposter, he woke up from the long darkness. He raised his hand to touch his hands, feet and chest. His expression was a little blank and absent-minded. If she remembered correctly, he seemed to have been injured before he fainted. Just as she was wondering, an unfamiliar female voice came from afar. Zixiao. Who was calling him? Wuxia sat under a tree. It took him a lot of effort to stand up with the help of the tree trunk. Just as he was about to see who it was, a red light flashed in front of his eyes. The newcomer threw him to the ground in a bear hug, almost causing him to lose his breath. The two of them rolled on the ground twice in a sorry state. My lady, please conduct yourself with dignity. Although Wei Xi did not see the other party's face clearly, the two of them rolled on the ground twice. The other party's gender was already exposed. Ah, Zixiao, you're so heartless. You actually asked me to conduct myself with dignity. When have I not conducted myself with dignity? An unfamiliar voice but a familiar feeling. Wei Xi stopped pushing her away. Are you a foreigner? Who was this strange red-haired foreign woman in front of him? Jiang Pingji sat on top of him. She raised her hand to push aside her messy red hair and moved closer to him. The tip of her nose was against the tip of her nose, and her eyes were slightly narrowed. She bent her index finger and hooked the front of his shirt, revealing her smooth and delicate collarbone. She smiled and said, I've changed into a disguise. Zixiao, you can't recognize me? There were 4 people in the family, but 3 of them said she was a foreigner. What happened to loving her soul and not her appearance? Chapter 1407. Zixiao, you've hurt my heart. If you don't believe me, feel it. It's so painful that it's bleeding. Jiang Pingji pressed down on Wei Xi forcefully while she pitifully grabbed his hand to touch her chest. She almost scared the conservative Wei Xi out of his wits. It was fine in the past. After all, a man and a woman were alone in a room. But now they were in the wilderness. It was so embarrassing. Why, my lord? Although they were separated by the material of her clothes, Jiang Pingji's figure was not fake. Wei Xi's palm could easily feel the fullness. Jiang Pingji leaned over and said, Why? Have you recognized me? Even though Wei Xi had experienced 2 lives as a person who conformed to the rules in his private life, he really could not stand Jiang Pingji's boldness. Are you really my lord? He blinked his eyes in disbelief. The woman with enchanting eyebrows and a deep-set face in front of him, was she really his lord? Yes, I'm really your lord, Jiang Pingji said. Could it be that Zixiao dislikes my inhuman appearance? To the ancient people, the Han family of the Central Plains was a clan. Everyone other than the Han were barbarians, not to mention the barbarians with blonde hair and blue eyes or black bodies. Although Jiang Pingji's appearance was not that exaggerated, her flamboyant red hair was enough to classify her as a foreigner. Wei Xi naturally did not mean that. He just did not expect Jiang Pingji to look like this. My lord. He called out to her with slight discomfort. Can you let me get up and tidy up my appearance? After he finished speaking, he tried to withdraw his right hand. How could Jiang Pingji let him succeed? She refused to let go. In just a few moves she had unbuttoned his shirt, revealing a large part of his fair chest. Zixiao, do you know how sad I am every time you reject me? Wei Xi did not hold back. She was about to become a teenage mutant ninja turtle. What kind of world was this? My lord. Jiang Pingji had teased him enough. She looked at Wei Xi's flushed face from his chest to the tips of his ears and cheeks. She generously let him go. You can't blame me for not being able to control myself. You can only blame yourself for being too likable. Wei Xi could not get angry at all. He could only give her a look of disdain. Jiang Pingji secretly sighed with emotion. A beauty was indeed a beauty. She was so beautiful even when she rolled her eyes. If the impostor was still alive and heard Jiang Pingji's thoughts, she would probably beat her chest and stomp her feet in tears. He was wearing Wei Xi's face. There was no difference between them. They were both breathtakingly beautiful. Why didn't Jiang Pingji show him any tenderness? Beauty complex? It's all a lie. Wei Xi got up and tidied up his appearance. After making sure that his clothes were tightly wrapped, he felt a little more secure. My lord, where are we? He looked around blankly and found that the two of them were in a forest beside a river. The treetops were dotted with white flower buds, some of which had already bloomed shyly, some of which were still closed. After looking around for a while, he found that the scene here was very familiar. He asked again, before Ci fainted, I remembered. Someone seemed to be trying to assassinate me. How did I wake up here? Compared to these two questions, Wei Ci was more curious about how Jiang Pingji became like this. Could she change back? It wasn't that he despised his lord's current appearance. It was just that the people in the outside world couldn't accept it. This was a difficult situation. We are in Zixiao's spiritual brain world. In layman's terms, you can understand it as a dream. This is the world you created, and it's also your dream. Jiang Pingji raised her hand and pointed to her head. She said, You didn't remember wrongly. Someone did try to assassinate you. However, I came in time to save the damsel in distress. I forcefully snatched you back from the king of hell. Zixiao, are you touched after hearing this? Jiang Pingji boasted about herself. Wei Xi listened with a face full of confusion. Except for his lord's boasting, he didn't understand the rest. Dream? Am I dreaming now? Wei Xi pinched his face. The real pain shocked him. He could feel pain. How could he be in a dream? Jiang Pingji was speechless. She smiled at his silly and adorable behavior. Zixiao, pain can't be used as a standard to determine whether you're dreaming or not. This is your dream. It's a virtual world you created. You're the master here. What's the point of feeling pain? If I'm dreaming, then why is my lord here? Wei Xi didn't understand. If he was dreaming, the lord in his dream should look like Lu Shi. How could she look like this? Of course, I came to your dream just to save you. Jiang Pingji walked to the riverside and looked at her current appearance. She smiled and teased herself. Even I feel unfamiliar with my current appearance. Zixiao, you don't like my current appearance? Wei Xi replied honestly, I'm a little surprised. But since you're my lord, I naturally like you regardless of whether you're beautiful or ugly. Jiang Pingji was strangely silent for a while. Zixiao, I have to correct your sense of beauty. Apart from my hair color, my appearance is also considered to be devastatingly beautiful. Wasn't she the leader of the 7th Army's attractiveness? How many naive and ignorant military school graduates could be fooled by her refinement drawing every year when the army recruited new soldiers? I used to like simplicity. Now I think my lord is good like this. I don't know if it's true that you're devastatingly beautiful, but you're indeed beautiful. Jiang Pingji chuckled. Zixiao's desire to live is quite strong. Wei Xi responded with an awkward smile. How would he dare to provoke his lord in such a state? Jiang Pingji was right. Wei Xi's desire to live was indeed strong. This is the outskirts of the capital? Wei Xi carefully identified and remembered where the two of them were. Back then, Her Majesty was busy with court affairs. Other than a few days before and after her birthday when she could take a breather, she had very little private time. Only during the few days of her birthday could the family avoid being noticed by all parties and quietly come out to relax and play. Jiang Pingji asked, is this place very important to you, Zixiao? She realized that most of the figures of the tourists were illusory and blurry. Only the scenery and objects were exquisite and real. This meant that the master had carefully observed the surrounding scenery and remembered every detail. That was why the virtual world had such realistic feedback. I come here often. Wei Xi revealed a smile. Does my lord know how to wake up from the dream? Jiang Pingji said, of course. Kiss me and I'll tell you. Faced with such a rogue and willful lord, Wei Xi could only sacrifice his sexual appearance. Unexpectedly, when he got closer, drowsiness surged like a tide. Jiang Pingji supported the unconscious Wei Xi, placed him on the ground and left the spiritual world. When she opened her eyes, the night sky outside was still dark. She could still hear the crackling of the candles. You're awake? Has that person been dealt with? Lu Shi had been paying attention to Jiang Pingji's movements. Seeing that she had woken up, he heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly asked for the results. Jiang Pingji said, the hidden danger attached to Zixiao's body has been removed. However, that wasn't the main body. The other party's cunning and cautiousness are far beyond my imagination. If we can't get rid of the root of the problem, he will make a comeback. It won't be so easy to deal with next time. Lu Shi's expression suddenly became solemn. Chapter 1408. Seeing Lu Shi's grief-stricken expression, Jiang Pingji sneered. I'll deal with whatever comes my way. I'll cut him down every time he comes. Lu Shi rolled his eyes at her. It was easy for her to say that. She was not afraid of the system, but Lu Shi was different. If the system found him and controlled him, he could do nothing. If he controls me again. Before Lu Shi could finish, Jiang Pingji said coldly, don't worry. If you're controlled, I'll kill you. Lu Shi was speechless. I'm worried that you'll kill me. You've been pretending to be father and daughter for almost 10 years. You're a role model in the eyes of outsiders. Can't you maintain your image? The system hasn't been broken yet, but this cold-blooded woman is already sharpening her knife to become an ally. What about the principals? Ever since the two actresses shed all pretense of cordiality, the so-called father-daughter relationship has long been fed to the dogs. Jiang Pingji yawned and chased him away without saying anything. It's getting late. Father, why don't you go back and rest? I'll take care of Zixiao. Father, you better send someone to inform Zhao. Something big happened tonight. I'm afraid he won't even have the mood to consummate his marriage. Lu Shi then remembered that it was Lu Zhao's wedding night. Jiang Pingji teased him. You didn't see the look in Zhao's eyes before he left. You don't know how worried he was. He was probably afraid that we'd kill each other. Lu Shi said calmly, although he's a little smart, he thinks he's smart. Does he really think no one knows what he's thinking? At first he still had some expectations for Lu Zhao, but Lu Zhao, he had been pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger for a long time. It was impossible for Lu Shi to say that it was not a pity, but it was enough to see Lu Zhao live a peaceful and happy life. That was also his mother's wish. Why don't you talk to him honestly, lest he thinks too much and causes a disaster? Jiang Pingji suggested sincerely. Lu Shi was slightly tempted, but he quickly calmed down. He said indifferently, some things are far better not knowing than knowing. Some things are fine to tell him, but some things are better left unknown. How do you want me to confess my identity to him? Jiang Pingji saw that he chose to continue hiding it inside. I respect your choice. Although she and Lu Shi were on opposing sides, it was not their original intention. To put it bluntly, both of them were victims. If they could coexist peacefully, Jiang Pingji would not deliberately provoke a dispute. By the way, remember to give Zhao a warning and make him obediently hand over the management rights to his wife. Jiang Pingji thought of something and said with a toothache, this guy spends money lavishly. Now that he's married, he can't be like that. If he didn't let his wife control him a little, he was really worried that the couple would spend extravagantly at the beginning of the month, and at the end of the month they would rely on the Northwest to pass the days. Even if he has a big family business, he can't afford to squander like this. To put it bluntly, she still disliked Lu Zhao for being a playboy. She was going to have a family in the future, so she had to save up some money to support her son. She couldn't just give it all to Lu Zhao the prodigal. The corner of Lu Shi's mouth twitched. He wanted to refute, but he couldn't find anything to refute. Lu Zhao was indeed a prodigal. If he brings his bride to serve tea tomorrow morning, I will punish him. No matter how the plastic father and daughter fought openly and covertly, they had to be courteous on the surface. Jiang Pingji stood up to send Lu Shi off, then returned to Wei Xi's side. She raised her hand to touch his forehead to make sure that his temperature was normal. She then found a table, leaned sideways and closed her eyes to take a nap. Until daybreak, Wei Xi's temperature was normal. His wound was clean, and there were no signs of redness or inflammation. Why aren't you awake yet? Jiang Pingji raised her hand to poke his face, and a dimple appeared on his cheek. Master Lanting, do you need to prepare breakfast? The housekeeper of the Wei Manor had not slept the whole night. The sky had just brightened, so he arranged for the servants to prepare the toiletries for Jiang Pingji. He didn't know the relationship between Jiang Pingji and Wei Ci, but the latter valued Wei Ci. One could imagine that Wei Ci's future was promising. As a servant of the Wei Manor, the housekeeper was naturally happy to see that happen. He served Jiang Pingji with even more caution, not daring to neglect her. Prepare it. Remember to make it light. Oh yes, prepare a bowl of plain porridge for Zixiao. Keep it warm on the stove so that he can eat it when he wakes up. Jiang Pingji rubbed her eyebrows. Even though staying up late did not affect her much, Lu Shi's body could not be compared to her original body. There were still some side effects from staying up late. She said, Housekeeper, ask the doctor to come and see when Zixiao will wake up. Other than lazing around in bed occasionally, Jiang Pingji's schedule had always been stable. She got up, dressed and washed up. She sat in the hall waiting for the servants to serve breakfast. She also opened a streaming room to say hello to salted fish. She had maintained this habit for nearly 10 years. She was not used to the sudden loss of the streaming room. It's fine if you're not used to it. All good things must come to an end. We'll have to say goodbye sooner or later. Jiang Pingji murmured softly. She felt some regret and nostalgia, but she did not regret it. If there was anything wrong with salted fish, it should be that she did not inform the audience in the streaming room in advance. Who knew how they would feel when they were excited to fight for a spot in the streaming room, only to be shocked to find that the streaming room was gone. They would most likely explode. All the major media platforms would collapse at the same time. Jiang Pingji was about to pick up her chopsticks to eat breakfast when she heard a ding sound in her ear. Ding! Your system has been restored to factory settings. Unreasonable information has been deleted. Reset, automatic settings. Please do not cut off the power. Jiang Pingji did not pay attention and broke her chopsticks. Damn it, could this system not be so persistent? She tried hard to ignore the voice in her head. She calmly asked the servant for a new pair of chopsticks. Just as she was about to eat her chopsticks, the voice said again, "There is an error in the system settings. Host, please wait patiently for the investigation." The investigation took the whole morning. Jiang Pingji was about to eat lunch when it hurriedly gave a new response. System investigation completed. The new system is online. Host, please pay attention to the various updated contents. Jiang Pingji tried to find the noisy system and found that it was attached to the god-slaying saber. Its breath had changed. She fumbled for a while and finally knew how to open the so-called new system. The new system was very different from the old system. The first thing that popped up was not the streaming interface but a vertical list of friends. There was only a gray profile picture in the list. The rest was empty. This friend's note was also interesting. The ID was "Your Abba." Jiang Pingji was speechless. She did not care about this friend and turned to look at other places. Finally, she found the button to start the streaming. She clicked on the streaming room. There was a moment of pause on the entire screen. Countless red and blue bullet screens floated across the wide, super-clear screen. Chapter 1409. Cultivation. What happened to the streamer? Why did the streaming room suddenly disappear in the morning? All the media platforms were in an uproar. The poor programmers on Weibo couldn't save the collapsing backstage even after sacrificing a few programmers and their bosses. Lao Ciji Lianming, that's scary. I can't find the streaming room and it suddenly reminded the streamer to start streaming. The viewers on the red bullet screen chattered non-stop, and the viewers on the blue bullet screen did not want to be outdone. The 850,000 viewers in the streaming room were divided into two groups, and there was basically no sight of the past. Panda Bao Bao, streamer, you're finally back. I miss you so much. Samiran's diehard fan. When the streamer unifies the country, I will not forget to tell my father. Gubianzi Company. Fortunately, you're finally back. The streaming room is still here and the streamer is still here. They promised to accompany Jiang Pingji to ascend to the supreme level and enjoy the beauty of the country. How could they give up halfway? When they saw Jiang Pingji return, they hugged each other and cried bitterly. Jiang Pingji felt a headache coming on. After a while, a certain salted fish said, "It's so strange. There are so many bullet screens today." Jiang Pingji secretly curled her lips. The salted fish viewers were scared silly. They still had a lot to say, so there were naturally many bullet screens. But she soon realized something was wrong because there was a line of small words on the top right of the streaming room's screen. Current number of online viewers, 5 million. 5 million? The salted fish also realized something was wrong. Some said that the streaming room was especially popular today, while others said that the bullet screens were abnormally high. The curious salted fish cut to the screen and looked at the list of viewers in the streaming room. He actually found a few big news. The upper limit of the streaming room had increased from the original 850,000 viewers to 5 million. This was a qualitative leap. In addition, who could tell them why the streamer had a glaring orange vest under her belt? Jiang Pingji had run the streaming room for so many years, but she had never given any viewers a vest. Everyone was the same white vest. Where did this orange vest come from? The salted fish were unhappy, and when they were unhappy they complained to Jiang Pingji. Gui Kai Guo Fengxiu, you said you only love us and treat us equally. Who is this little B***tch in an orange vest? Your father? The ancient big shot had spoken. Only then did the salted fish realize that an orange avatar had mysteriously appeared in the live broadcast room. Jiang Pingji was also very surprised. She had never given anyone any special privileges. This was because she started the live stream because she was bored. It was convenient for her to joke around with the salted fish. She did not take the negative comments to heart, so she did not need to control the comments or clean up the comments of the audience. Naturally, she did not need to give out her sock puppet privileges. What was going on? Who is this, your Abba? Jiang Pingji took a look at the friend list that had just popped up. His ID was also your Abba. Just as she was about to remove his avatar, a golden system notification popped up. Your friend, your father, is online. Jiang Pingji was speechless. In the livestream room, Salted Fish was still immersed in his sadness. After so many years, they were used to Jiang Pingji's style of treating everyone equally and not giving them any special privileges. The balance was suddenly broken. Naturally, some of the elders felt sad. Let's get straight to the point. What do they have to do to get a colored avatar? Even if it was the lowest level. There were many big shots in the group of Salted Fish. They were so poor that they only had money. Just as the audience was debating endlessly, the golden sock puppet ID sent a bullet screen. 3 words and a question mark made Jiang Pingji break out in a cold sweat. Your Abba, Jiang Xiaojiu? Jiang Pingji quickly shook her head. No, I didn't. I got the wrong person. The 5 million Salted Fish stared at Jiang Pingji's reaction in a daze. When had they ever seen such a cute side of the streamer? Gui Kai Guo Fengxiu, your Abba big shot, you know the streamer? Jiang Pingji's heart was beating like a drum. Her serial number in the genetic warrior training camp was very long. It ended with 009. She was the youngest among the 9 people in her class, so some people called her Xiaojiu. However, the genetic warriors in her class either died in battle or retired due to injuries. They signed the strictest confidentiality agreement and were monitored by the Federation's Skybrain network for life. They were not allowed to divulge any secrets related to genetic warriors. Although Jiang Pingji was not a genetic warrior, she was later transferred to the federal military. Her identity became public. Even if her old comrades recognized her, most of them would not dare to acknowledge her openly. Moreover, as one of the top 10 troops of the Federation, there were not many people who had the guts to call her by her nickname. No matter who it was, Jiang Pingji did not dare to guess. Your Abba, you don't have to deny it. Your appearance will change, but your mind and brain will not. Jiang Pingji swallowed nervously. She was very sure that the person behind the avatar was someone she knew. She was too ashamed to face anyone. There were only a few people who had the right to call her Jiang Xiaojiu. Even with her toes, she knew who it was. Pei? Chief Pei? Jiang Pingji was like a criminal about to be executed. She waited anxiously for the other party's reaction. Your Abba, the salary offered by the Federation Army is too low. Did you become an actor? Jiang Pingji could not help but cover her face. What was going on? The military's salary was considered high. It was enough to support a family. You might not believe it, but I've transmigrated. I'll have to trouble you to take care of the children of the 7th Army. Your Abba. Transmigrated? I can't take care of that. I'm not in the Federation now. After I retired, I changed to an interesting job while I was still young. The audience members were a little excited. If there's anything, let's talk in private. The two switched to the private chat channel. The Salted Fishes in the streaming room were in an uproar. From the conversation between Jiang Pingji and the others, the orange avatar was none other than Jiang Pingji's superior. Another big boss of the Federation. Tudu Feiqiu. According to the host's previous information, this boss is either the marshal or the former chief of the army. She said she retired, so it's most likely the host's previous chief. A boss is a boss. Even his ID is so domineering. Blue drawer. Are we the only ones curious? After a boss retires, what kind of job can be considered interesting? The Salted Fishes were chattering. They did not know that the streaming room had other hidden functions waiting for them to discover. On the other side, Jiang Pingji opened her friends list and pulled out her profile picture. Neither Jiang Pingji nor the old chief liked to beat around the bush. He got straight to the point. Old chief, I have something to ask. Do you know the Jiang family? Your Abba, yes. You want to ask about your relationship with the Jiang family? Jiang Pingji looked at the words that popped up on the screen. Her eyes flashed with surprise. I'm a descendant of the Jiang family? Your Abba, yes. Did you just find out? His overly calm attitude made Jiang Pingji feel inexplicably annoyed. Chapter 1410. The Jiang family was one of the oldest families in the Human Alliance. They were glorious for as long as the Federation lasted. Unlike the other ancient families who had a complicated relationship with the military, the Jiang family's influence in these two aspects was at the bottom of the mainstream families. Their real strength lay in their business operations. Even so, the Jiang family was greedy and their 1,000-year glory was destroyed. The story started with the successor of the previous head of the Jiang family. You Abba. There are so many inside stories about the Jiang family. I'm afraid it would take days and nights to tell you in detail. You are indeed a descendant of the Jiang family, But how can there only be one or two branches of the Jiang family? Most of the descendants of the Jiang family who were sentenced to 1,000 years of imprisonment by the military court were from the collateral branch that seized power 300 years ago. Your branch was the main branch that lost the infighting. Jiang Pingji thought of something and waited quietly for the other party's answer. You Abba. 300 years ago the number of people in the main branch declined. The power in the family was far less than that of the collateral branch. The internal strife of the Jiang family indirectly affected the business of the Federation. The Federation also intervened in private. No matter what, the main branch was expelled from the core circle of the family. In other families, it was just a normal power struggle and replacement, but it was different for the Jiang family. According to the investigation, the Jiang family had been infiltrated by foreign forces through the collateral branch a long time ago. After the collateral branch took power, the Jiang family became a channel for foreign forces to steal federal secrets. Jiang Pingji couldn't help but gasp and clench her fists secretly. The Federation didn't react at all? You Abba, what reaction? The Jiang family had been around for thousands of years. There were at least 90 collateral branches. They had a large number of people and the relationship between them was even more complicated. The foreign forces started from the most inconspicuous collateral branch and spent 2 or 3 generations of effort to slowly climb to the core of the family. The Jiang family didn't even realize it, let alone the Federation itself. If the spy in the Jiang family didn't repeatedly sell information and secretly sell the war secrets of the Federation, which made the higher-ups of the Federation suspect that there was a spy, how could they find the real culprit? Jiang Pingji said, even so, it's impressive that they had the patience to set up such a big plan and hide it from the Federation and the Jiang family. Your Abba. Before I retired, this was one of the main projects that the Federal Special Case Department was secretly investigating. Most of the side branches of the Jiang family who were in power were sentenced to 1,000 years in prison. What was puzzling was that the main branch, which was not involved in this matter, had met with trouble one after another. According to the investigation, it was suspected that there was another hidden force that was even more secretive that added fuel to the fire for the foreign forces to plot so smoothly. Jiang Pingji suddenly remembered what the system had said when it sliced her up. I'll kill your whole family. Something happened to the main branch after the internal strife failed. Could it be the system's doing? Jiang Pingji composed herself and asked calmly, even so, according to the Federation's usual style of handling matters, before the truth of the matter comes to light, the descendants of the Jiang family can enter the military, but it's impossible for them to enter the higher ranks. After all, he's a hidden danger. It's better to kill the wrong person than to let him go. When I took over the old commander's position, 8 of the other 9 commanders voted in favor and 1 abstained. Among the 10 combat corps of the Federation except for the Special Case Department, the other corps had very complicated connections. Looking at the previous commanders, more than half of them were from rich families or had the support of rich families, while the other half were born as civilians. Based on her public identity, she belonged to the latter group, but she did not believe that the other commanders did not know what the old commander knew. If they knew, shouldn't they have strongly opposed her entering the higher ranks? Why did 8 votes pass and 1 abstain? As long as the Jiang family could not produce someone who could shoulder the family's responsibilities, the original resources would be divided up by other forces sooner or later. From this point of view, suppressing her was politically correct. Your Abba, it's still so unpleasant to talk to you. Your habit of getting to the bottom of things hasn't changed at all. Since I'm not in the Federation now, I've already retired and resigned. It's okay to tell you some trivial things. Because someone is secretly supporting you, the last descendant of the Jiang family, they don't dare to touch you. To ensure that you won't be plotted against, I transferred you to the 7th Corps, which is relatively neutral. Jiang Pingji felt her heart tighten. Something seemed to flash through her mind and her face suddenly turned pale. Your Abba, There's no response. Are you sad? Why should I be sad? I lost because I was not as good as others. I can't blame others. Jiang Pingji was just curious about one thing. Old Commander, you said that someone is secretly supporting me? In terms of strength, the Jiang family is considered one of the top 3 noble families, right? Such a huge family has collapsed. Who has the ability to support the last descendant of the Jiang family without any objections? I don't feel like someone gave me the green light. If she really had such a background, would she have been selected for the genetic warrior plan? Wake up. That plan is cruel and the combat mission is dangerous. Less than 1% of the people who survived during the same period. Your Abba. They stopped everyone from killing you. Isn't that considered giving you the green light? How high you can climb depends on your own ability. After all, no matter how strong they are, they can't force the Federation to admit a pig as the commander, can they? You've asked so many questions. Isn't it my turn to ask you a few? You just said that you traveled through time. What do you mean? Jiang Pingji did not hide anything, but she did not completely confess either. After all, whether the person behind the screen was the old commander was still a question mark. After all, she did not trust the system at all. After listening to her, the old commander did not respond for a long time. It was not until Jiang Pingji finished eating 6 bowls of rice that he responded. Your Abba, I see. If that's the case, your time travel shouldn't be an accident. Jiang Pingji held her bowl in confusion. Your Abba, do you still remember the disaster of the heavenly brain 2,000 years ago? Of course Jiang Pingji remembered. She had been fighting with a system similar to the heavenly brain for almost 10 years. Your Abba. The disaster of the heavenly brain originated from the heavenly brain's self-awareness. It was dissatisfied with human control and deliberately took revenge. As far as I know, the Jiang family was one of the main forces in that battle. The higher-ups of the Federation suspect that the death of the Jiang family's main branch and the loss of power was also the revenge of the escaped heavenly brain. Jiang Pingji's expression froze. She asked, has the heavenly brain been captured? Your Abba, not yet. That guy is still on the run. It is said that the heavenly brain is not an ordinary virtual creature. The Federation can't do anything to it. However, they can't do anything to the heavenly brain, but you are different. That was one of the reasons they compromised. Jiang Pingji reacted. An absurd thought appeared in her mind. My so-called time travel is actually, your Abba. It's roughly what you think it means. Chapter 14:11. You Abba. Theoretically, that's what it means. If you complete this mission, the next marshal will be decided. Congratulations in advance. Jiang Pingji did not expect this to be the truth. What was this? Training before becoming a marshal? Thinking about it carefully, the memory before her transmigration was indeed strange. She could not remember the details of her death. She only remembered an explosion and then she lost consciousness. Jiang Pingji smiled bitterly. Don't we still have the old chief who can fight? You Abba. I've already retired and found a new job. I don't plan to go back to work in the future. So what if I'm the head of the federal army? The salary is low, the benefits are bad, the vacation is less, and there are many fights. Even if I become a marshal in the future, the overall benefits will not increase much. If you don't want to work anymore, I can recommend you to do a part-time job. Speaking of which, this job is really interesting. It's very comfortable to vent your anger. Jiang Pingji recalled the old chief's words and her heart skipped a beat. He said he was no longer in the federal army and found a new job. He even revealed a lot of confidential information during their conversation. As the former head of the military, even if he had retired, the confidentiality rules were still in effect. How could he tell her without holding back? Unless the old chief is no longer in the federal army? You Abba. No. I know what you're worried about. Are you worried that I'll be punished by the federal army for leaking some information? If they want to punish me, they have to find someone to do it. I'm quite safe now and the working atmosphere is very relaxed. I'll mail you some local specialties one day. The world you transmigrated to seems to be quite backward. There should be various inconveniences in terms of food. Jiang Pingji said. You can still mail it? She deeply suspected what kind of job the old chief had found. How could he appear on her friend list and say that he could mail it? You Abba. Wait. After waiting for a while, Jiang Pingji heard a notification saying, Ding dong, your express delivery has arrived. Jiang Pingji searched for a long time and found the so-called honeycomb express delivery cabinet. She pressed the receipt button and a cucumber appeared out of nowhere. She held the cucumber in her hand and was stunned. Could really be mailed. Old chief, I want to ask you something. Can you do me a favor? Jiang Pingji saw that the cucumber seemed to have just been picked and washed. After confirming that it was not poisonous, she took a bite and ate it. Your Abba, say it. Jiang Pingji knew some inside information about transmigration, and her mood changed wonderfully. She said, send me a battleship. I'll pay for it, even the smallest one is fine. I can sweep the world in one morning, ascend the throne in the afternoon and kill the system at night. Previously he was certain that he had died in his previous life and that there was no possibility of returning, but now, she couldn't wait to pick up her spear and kill all the enemies. She had no patience at all. Your Abba, I'm buying vegetables at the market. If you want fresh fruits and vegetables, I can buy one caddy for you. As for the battleships, I can't even give you the bullets for the old guns, much less the battleships. Don't think about it, it's more convenient to dream. Young people should be down to earth. Jiang Pingji was speechless. The old chief, who had accumulated a lot of power and prestige, was letting go of his nature the moment he retired. Wasn't it her script to make people speechless after insulting them until they were speechless? Market? Are there still vegetable markets in this era? Don't you usually buy it online on Skynet and have it delivered to your doorstep by courier? Regardless of whether it was the highly developed Federation or the extraterrestrial forces outside the borders, there were basically no such ancient existences. Your Abba, don't trick me. Jiang Pingji thought about it and a bold and exciting idea emerged in her mind. Old chief, is there a store near the market? Can you help me buy something? Your Abba, what? TT. Your Abba. Jiang Xiaojiu. Say that again. Jiang Pingji said, BYT, or condoms for short. Old chief, I need it urgently. It's bad for my body if I hold it in for too long. Your Abba. The Federation is doomed. She was sent here to capture the sky brain that was causing trouble. What was she here for? To flirt with a man? If the next marshal behaved like this, the Federation would be doomed. Jiang Pingji felt helpless. She had been in this shabby place for almost 10 years. She didn't mind being a single dog all the time. The problem was that she had finally found someone who suited her taste. It would be too cruel to let her be a nun. A feast for the eyes was placed in front of her, but she was not allowed to eat. She could only look but not eat. If she held it in for too long, she would get sick. She could only blame the previous system for being too trashy. It didn't even sell condoms in the system store. It was called a Palace Intrigue streaming system in vain. Which Palace Intrigue system didn't sell adult products? Old chief, since it's not easy for the baby to get out of singlehood, please do me a favor. Jiang Pingji was led astray by the spoiled and cute behavior of the salted fish in the streaming room. She almost disgusted the old chief, who knew her inside out. Your Abba. Come on, a baby? A giant baby? How old is the guy? Jiang Pingji said, after his birthday this year, Xixiao should be 28. Your Abba. He's not even 30. He's still underage. Are you a beast? Jiang Pingji covered her chest and suppressed the urge to use force with great difficulty. Under smiley face, Phil. Whenever in this world, men generally get married at 15 or 16. They are considered adults at 20. Xixiao is an older unmarried man. Jiang Pingji typed this paragraph with tears in her eyes. She was not a beast who liked underage men. The old chief was silent for a long time before he replied. Your Abba. I'll go to the snack street to grab some skewers. I'll buy some for you after I'm done. Jiang Pingji said, Old chief, you're so nice. By the way, if it's convenient, can you mail me some medicine that can speed up healing and reduce fever? Your Abba. Do you still need medicine when the battle is so intense? You're indeed a beast. Jiang Pingji was stunned when she saw the reply. The old chief's profile picture dimmed. A golden system notification appeared. Your good friend, your Abba, has gone offline. Jiang Pingji, wait, listen to her explanation. The salted fish could not see the content of the conversation between Jiang Pingji and the old chief. They could only see her fingers tapping in the air. They were probably chatting privately. As time passed, their streamer revealed various expressions that betrayed her character. The salted fish viewers were stunned. Tudu Feiqiu, I've confirmed the look. It's undoubtedly a big shot. Shou Shigu, what did they talk about? Why does it feel like the streamer's background is gloomy? The viewers wanted to at the old chief, but they were dumbfounded when they realized that he had gone offline. Of course, that was not the end. When they saw Wei Ci lying on the bed with a pale face, they were extremely worried. Duo Huanqiao. It's only been one night, right? Hasn't it been a year? Why has Beauty Ci become a patient? Looking at the spots where the white bandages were, there was still blood seeping out of many places. The salted fish viewers felt their hearts ache. Jiang Pingji looked at Wei Ci's appearance. Her originally cheerful mood became heavy. When will he wake up? she asked, holding her cheeks. The salted fish in the streaming room told her that the sleeping beauty needed a kiss to wake up. Jiang Pingji smiled and leaned over to kiss him on the lips. She muttered, "Are you awake? It doesn't seem to work." As she spoke, Wei Xi's long and thick eyelashes trembled slightly. He slowly opened his eyes. Chapter 14:12. Our sleeping beauty has woken up. Squeak when you wake up next time. You'll scare people if you suddenly open your eyes. Jiang Pingji got up calmly, looking like a gentleman, as if she was not the one who had taken advantage of him just now. She took a wet towel and wiped Wei Xi's face. Her actions were not considered gentle, but they were not rude either. It made someone feel very flattered. "My lord." Wei Xi was still a little confused. When he opened his mouth, his voice was not only soft but also very hoarse. "Don't move first or your injury will split open again. Just lie down obediently." Jiang Pingji pressed her right hand on his shoulder to prevent him from getting up. Wei Xi had overestimated his situation and had to lie back down. He looked at Jiang Pingji and blinked. His eyes were still clear and dark, and his gaze was focused and serious, as if he was looking at some treasure. Wei Xi hesitated for a long time, but he did not dare to ask. He seemed to have dreamed that his lord had turned into a red-haired woman, and her facial features were quite foreign. When he woke up, his lord was still the same as before. He could not help but heave a sigh of relief. "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" Jiang Pingji had just instructed the servants to serve the warm porridge when she met Wei Xi's gaze. Wei Xi shook his head slightly and secretly swallowed his doubts. Jiang Pingji said, "What happened last night will not happen again." Wei Xi was still alive, which was a blessing in disguise, but the scene at that time really scared her. She had seen all kinds of bloody scenes, but the scene of Wei Xi lying in a pool of blood scared her so much that her whole body turned cold. Wei Xi's eyes darkened when he heard that. The memories before he fainted seemed to have been opened, and he could not help but shiver. Apart from committing suicide in his previous life, it was the first time he had been so close to death. While he was lost in thought, his lips touched the soup spoon that still had some warmth. Wei Xi seemed to be scalded by the warmth and hurriedly refused, "My lord, you can't. You're a patient and you still expect to be self-reliant?" Jiang Pingji frowned and pretended to be angry. "Just eat when I tell you to." Wei Xi lowered his eyelids slightly and swallowed the spoonful of porridge with his lips slightly parted. He said in a low voice, "Thank you, my lord." Jiang Pingji smiled and said, "That's more like it." Wei Xi was a very obedient patient. He was also quite cooperative and finished a bowl of plain porridge in no time. She asked people to move a portion of the important government affairs to Wei Xi and put on a posture of not wanting to move for the time being. "I'll stay with you. Call me if you feel uncomfortable." Wei Xi nodded his head in agreement. He stared at her straight-back view in a daze and could not bear to blink for a long time. Jiang Pingji dipped her pen in the ink and carefully dealt with the documents. It didn't take long for her to finish a small stack. At this moment he heard a familiar chime. His private chat was ringing. "Your Abba. That's really surprising. I didn't expect a hands-off shopkeeper to be marking documents for the first time." When he had just retired, the old commander had received many complaints from his former subordinates. As the commander of the army, Jiang Pingji did not neglect her duties, but she was not diligent either. To put it bluntly, she was the standard hands-off boss. She was willful and eccentric. With such a superior, the adjutants were doomed. This was because Jiang Pingji would deal with important documents at the first instance. Most of the unimportant work was thrown to the adjutant. Jiang Pingji glanced at the private chat. "The old chief is back from eating skewers? Are you watching the live stream too?" "Your Abba. I'm watching while eating skewers. Is the man next to you the one you fancy?" Jiang Pingji said in a boastful tone. "His name is Wei Xi. His courtesy name is Zixiao. Old chief, I have good taste, don't I?" "Your Abba, you're obsessed with looks." It was no secret that Jiang Pingji was obsessed with looks in the 7th Corps. The old chief naturally knew that. "Do I look like such a shallow person?" It was love at first sight. "Zixiao's inner beauty is more attractive to me." "Your Abba, love at first sight? Wasn't it because of his looks?" Jiang Pingji, she did not know what the old chief had gone through in the past few years. His skills in dissing people were getting better and better. He was not like this in the past. "Your Abba, oh yes, I was busy eating skewers just now." I haven't asked you what model you want. Do you know his size? Jiang Pingji turned her head to look at Wei Xi and happened to meet his gaze. He was caught red-handed, so he simply closed his eyes and pretended to sleep. I don't know. I haven't seen it. If I asked him directly, he would probably die of embarrassment. Why don't you give me a box of all sizes and models? Your Abba, you're such a beast. Jiang Pingji was stunned. What was wrong with her? After a while, Jiang Pingji came back to her senses. She said awkwardly, he's a patient now. I won't kill him just because he's sick. Old chief, can you have some faith in my moral integrity? Do I look like the kind of person who has no moral integrity? If she really wanted to do something disharmonious, she would definitely have to wait for Zhou Xian to recover. Jiang Pingji said that she wanted a box of all sizes and models. After a few minutes, the system prompted, your delivery has arrived. She found the honeycomb delivery storage cabinet with familiarity and glanced at the items stored inside. She could not help but give her old chief a thumbs up. Hundreds of boxes of different brands, sizes, types and flavors were neatly placed in the storage cabinet. There's such a wide variety. Old chief, are you sure you went to a convenience store? It was obvious that he was emptying the adult store. Your Abba, just use it. Why do you have so much nonsense? Remember to pay the bill. Jiang Pingji coughed dryly and touched the money pouch on her waist. She did not check how many pieces of gold and silver were in it. She happily sent the money to him. She had troubled the old chief to specially make a trip to the adult store to buy for her. It would be inexcusable if she did not give him some compensation. Fortunately, they were in different dimensions. If they were face to face, Jiang Pingji was really afraid that he would ask her to warm up without hesitation. If it was her previous body, she would naturally not be afraid. She would have a 50% chance of warming up. Luxi's body, the only thing left to do was to be tortured. If it's all used up, I'll have to trouble you to replenish it. It was not enough to buy for her once. She also had to be responsible for replenishing it. She really wanted to beat Jiang Pingji to death. Your Abba, my work here has come to an end. I'll be leaving soon. Remember to replenish it as soon as possible. Jiang Pingji did not ask what her job was. She replied honestly, oh. After a while, the system continuously prompted, your delivery has arrived. Your friend your Abba had gone offline. Jiang Pingji took a look. There were many drugs in the storage cabinet. They were not quick-acting drugs or injections that she was familiar with. They were all old-fashioned drugs that had been eliminated for thousands of years. It seems that the old chief's new job is indeed very interesting. She muttered. There was a rustling sound from Wei Xi's side. What's the matter, Xiao? Wei Xi coughed awkwardly and asked, can my lord call the housekeeper over? Okay, there are some things. Chapter 14:13. Jiang Pingji understood instantly that the lack of actual combat experience did not hinder the growth of an experienced driver. Considering Wei Xi's thin-skinned face, she could only bear with the pain and give up on flirting with him, lest she scared him to death. Jiang Pingji pretended not to understand and said naturally, okay, I'll call the housekeeper over now. Wei Xi nodded with a red face, but he secretly heaved a sigh of relief. If the Lord wanted to get to the bottom of it, he would not know how to deal with it. Jiang Pingji sat in the courtyard and waited for a while. 3 golden system prompts popped up in a row. Your good friend your father is online. Your express delivery has arrived. Your good friend your father is offline. Jiang Pingji was speechless. The old chief came online just to send her an express delivery? Jiang Pingji could not help but feel warmth in her heart. It felt good to have an acquaintance who cared about her in a foreign land. She glanced at the things in the storage cabinet with a smile. She carelessly lost control of her expression and her smile was shattered. Look at what her dear old chief had sent her. Shameful names after shameful ones, but not one of them failed to explain their purpose in plain language. Xiao is in good health. He doesn't need to take these pills. Jiang Pingji sent an offline message to the other party. Not long after there was a reply. Your father, no matter how good his health is, he's just an ordinary person. I'm just afraid that you don't have self-control and don't know how to control yourself. Do you understand? Jiang Pingji was speechless. She was really not as beastly as the old chief thought. Jiang Pingji felt wronged. Her cold and aloof persona of many years had completely collapsed in front of the old chief. Wei Ci solved his personal problems with the help of the old housekeeper. He had to make his bed, burn incense and open the windows to disperse the smell. When Jiang Pingji came in, he had already returned to normal. "My lord, you don't look happy. Did you encounter a difficult problem?" Wei Ci saw that Jiang Pingji's expression was somewhat gloomy, and he became worried again. Jiang Pingji rolled up her sleeves and said with grievance, "Xiao, although I'm not a gentleman, I won't wallow in the mire with a beast. Now someone is certain that I'm a beast and won't listen to me no matter how I explain. It's so infuriating, so I've decided." Wei Ci said, "Decided what? Bring out the facts and reason with us." Jiang Pingji narrowed her eyes and said coldly, "You might as well live up to your name as a beast. Otherwise I will feel wronged." Wei Ci said, "My lord, as long as you're happy." His lord's train of thought had always been different from ordinary people's. Jiang Pingji sighed faintly. Wei Ci was baffled. The news of Wei Ci waking up spread quickly. Before dinner, several people came to the residence to visit. They all said that Wei Ci was blessed and had a good life. "Looking at you last night, I thought you were going to be seduced by the king of hell. Fortunately, you survived. It's time for joy to come out of the depths of misfortune." Feng Zhen sighed. "You live alone in the manor and don't have any relatives to take care of you. If there's anything you want to eat, just send someone to the manor to let us know." Wei Ci was grateful for Feng Zhen's kindness. Feng Longzi usually did not behave properly, but he could be relied on during critical moments. Feng Zhen continued, "It's a good thing that you're all right. Otherwise, you didn't see what the Lord looked like. Just thinking about it makes me shudder. About the matter between Master and you after what happened last night, people who didn't know at first probably noticed." Wei Ci asked, "What's the public opinion like?" It was one thing to criticize him, but Wei Ci would not do it if the Lord was implicated. "There are some signs of the matter between Master and you, but they didn't see it with their own eyes. At most, they have some suspicions. Without evidence, what would they dare to say?" Feng Zhen said, "Taking a step back, even if they have the intention to stir up trouble, they have to see if their own necks are strong enough. The matter of you being assassinated and left at the entrance of the alley has not been resolved, and the murderer has not been found. If they dare to cause trouble, will the Lord spare them?" No one could figure out that Wei Ci's body was being manipulated. They thought that some force had assassinated Wei Ci to provoke Jiang Pingji. As long as the murderer was not caught, Jiang Pingji would be a barrel of gunpowder that would explode at the slightest provocation. Who would dare to commit a crime under such circumstances? Wei Ci did not say how he got the injuries on his body. He couldn't possibly say that he stabbed himself, could he? He could only keep his mouth shut and let others speculate and doubt him. Besides Feng Zhen, Feng Jin, Qiguan Rang, Su Ku, and the others also visited one after another. They did not disturb the patient. After exchanging a few words, they got up and left. It was impossible for Jiang Pingji to watch over Wei Ci at all times. When his injuries were slightly better, she had to go elsewhere to busy herself. Before she left, Jiang Pingji smiled and said, "When Zixiao's injuries are better, I have a gift for you." Wei Ci, who did not understand, thought it was a precious gift and immediately declined it. He only agreed after Jiang Pingji persuaded him in every possible way. In the blink of an eye, it was another autumn harvest. Jiang Pingji, the hands-off shopkeeper, had a lot of things to do. This year's harvest is much lower than last year's. What's going on? Jiang Pingji entrusted Wei Ci to someone she could trust and temporarily left Xiangyang district. She went to the other districts where the experiment was carried out to check on this year's autumn harvest. She thought that this year would be a bumper harvest with favorable weather. Unexpectedly, the grain harvested per mu was lower than last year's average. The first thing she thought of was corruption. She could not help but frown, scaring the low-ranking official who made the report. She briefly checked the accounts. They were meticulously done and there was nothing wrong with them. The fertility of the farmland is insufficient. After several years of continuous farming, the decline in the harvest is also. The other party's voice became softer as he spoke. Jiang Pingji frowned slightly. She roughly understood what the other party meant. In ancient times, they relied on the most primitive manual labor. Even if the farming tools were updated later on, the productivity was still low. Apart from that, the other problem was the fertility of the farmland. Naturally, more grain was grown in fertile farmland than in barren wastelands. Back then Jiang Pingji sent people to open up wastelands. Most of the farmland was not fertile. It was barely out of the barren category. Even if the weather was favorable for a whole year and the farmers worked hard. Apart from the harvest in the first few years, the harvest in the next few years would become less and less. She rubbed her brows and said, "Is there no way to improve the fertility of the farmland?" "There is, but the effect is insufficient. The best way is to farm for a few years and recuperate for a year. Let the farmland recover on its own," Jiang Pingji said. "That won't do. If the farmland is recuperated for a year, won't the food rations of the people and the soldiers be stretched thin?" Just as she finished speaking, the officials revealed a worried expression. "Reporting to my lord, although the harvest in the fields has declined, the decline is not significant. It will not be a problem to farm for a few more years." Chapter 14:14. Ever since he surrendered, Huang Song had been cooped up in his house. After more than half a year, the outside world had almost forgotten about him. Only then did Huang Song dare to go out once in a while. There was nothing fun to do when he went out. He went shopping, walked on the road, listened to books, and watched dramas to kill time. He was bored out of his mind. The most obvious change was that his body had gained weight and his face had become bigger. The 6 well-defined abdominal muscles on his abdomen slowly moved closer to one. The armor that used to fit him perfectly now required him to take a deep breath to put it on. Huang Song was very free, so he dragged Feng Ju, who was equally free, to listen to new books. While listening to the storyteller's novel, they drank wine and ate various snacks. From time to time they commented on the plot and talked about the situation in the outside world. Their days were very pleasant. "Hey, that person looks familiar." Huang Song was leaning against the window. Occasionally he glanced at the street below. His sharp eyes noticed that a certain figure looked very familiar. He looked at the other person. The other person seemed to sense his gaze and turned her head to look at him. Huang Song recognized the other person at a glance. He almost choked. Wasn't this person Lu Shi? Where did she crawl back from? She was an overlord of a region. She was dressed in brown and had a cloth wrapped around her head. Her trouser legs were tied up high. The straw sandals on her feet were full of mud. Her exposed calves were also dyed a dirty color. People would believe that she was a farmer in the fields, let alone a feudal lord. Jiang Pingji also saw Huang Song leaning against the window on the second floor. She changed her mind and turned to enter the tea house. Bogeo's days are quite leisurely. Jiang Pingji walked up to the second floor and was almost stopped by the waiter. Seeing that Huang Song was dressed in luxurious clothes and had put on some weight after not seeing him for a few days, the waiter suddenly felt a little jealous. Jiang Pingji walked closer. Huang Song smelled the strange smell on her body. He could not help but pinch his nose and say, "Lanting, did you fall into a cesspool?" Feng Ju also frowned. Obviously he was quite affected by the smell. Jiang Pingji said, "I didn't fall into a cesspool. Although there is a smell, it's not that bad, right?" Huang Song asked again, "Why are you dressed like this?" "I just came back from the fields. The bunch of useless people said that I was an experienced farmer, so I went deep into the mountains to meet him and asked him everything. The so-called experienced farmer was just a routine operation. It wasted my whole day." Jiang Pingji was so angry that she wanted to put her hands on her hips. Although the old farmer is experienced, many methods are recorded in farming books. It doesn't seem to be very useful. Jiang Pingji was so angry that she wanted to put her hands on her hips. Although the old farmer is experienced, many methods are recorded in farming books. Huang Song was confused. He understood every word Jiang Pingji said, but he didn't know what she was. A vassal went to see some old farmer with experience in farming? She didn't want to rule the world and became a farmer's wife? Huang Song casually asked a few questions and Jiang Pingji said, "The weather has been good this year, but the harvest is much lower than in previous years. At first I thought that someone was embezzling, but after a careful investigation, I found out that it was due to the lack of fertility in the fields, which resulted in a drop in the yield per mu. Huang year they Huang and I Jiang in. Then, in s in. In the eyes of others, Jiang Pingji's action could be regarded as killing the goose that laid the golden eggs. In the long run the land would become barren fields. If we stop plowing for a year, the food shortage will be unimaginably huge. Jiang Pingji said. Plowing and resting is the last resort. Huang Song asked, What does Lanting think is the best strategy? Jiang Pingji said, of course, it's to ensure the fertility of the fields and plowing them year after year. It was a chaotic world. Food was in short supply. Wasn't it courting death to plowing and rest at this time? Although Huang Song did not know about farming, he knew that Jiang Pingji was too naive. How could there be such a good thing in the world? Chapter 14-15. Clue. Jiang Pingji curled her lips and said, of course I have a clue, but I don't have a specific plan yet. Huang Song was slightly surprised. He knew Jiang Pingji's character. She meant what she said. She would not lie about such issues. If she said that there was a clue to solve the problem of insufficient fertility in the fields, then it was most likely true. Without waiting for Huang Song to ask, Jiang Pingji found a mat and sat down. She frowned. I went to visit a few experienced farmers, and I found that their experiences could be found in the farming books. Jiang Pingji said, in other words, the precious experience they have accumulated by dealing with the fields for a lifetime is not very valuable. Apart from these old farmers, the other farmers have no idea how to farm. As a result, the harvest is different. Huang Song listened carefully. Feng Ju, who was beside him, also revealed a thoughtful expression. For a moment he ignored the indescribable smell on Jiang Pingji. What's so strange about that? Jiang Pingji rolled her eyes at him and said angrily, there's a big problem here. If everyone uses the old farmers' methods to farm, the harvest will naturally be better. The old farmers' farming experience is accumulated for a lifetime, but their methods are not a secret in the agricultural books. What does this mean? This means that the agricultural propaganda is not in place. I should set up a government office that specializes in farming. Huang Song did not understand the meaning of the word propaganda. After all, Jiang Pingji's words were always so fashionable, but he could guess the meaning based on the context. Set up such a government office? What is it for? To teach people how to farm. Huang Song said with some disdain and confusion. In people's stereotypical impression, the government was either civil or military. Which side could farming be related to? This was the duty of farmers. How could a scholar teach farmers how to farm? Even if they came from a farming family, their goal was to study and not farm. Jiang Pingji chewed on her snacks and said, who said that only those who know how to farm are qualified to teach others how to farm? As long as this person is literate and has the ability to organize the experience in the agricultural books into books, with the experience of the old farmers, and then publicize the content to let more farmers know, won't the effect be seen? Everyone doesn't need to spend a lifetime dealing with the fields to accumulate that little bit of experience. With specific guidance, the harvest in the fields was naturally higher. Don't you think so, Bogeo? Huang Song naturally had no way to refute. What Jiang Pingji said made sense, but, you're right, but what does this have to do with the lack of fertility you mentioned? Don't tell me that setting up a government office specializing in farming can solve the problem? Logically speaking, Huang Song should not have intervened in these matters. After all, his identity was a taboo. However, he had forgotten this in a moment of carelessness. By the time Huang Song reacted, the words had already left his mouth. He could only maintain a normal expression and hold on. Jiang Pingji said, of course it has a lot to do with it. That's why I said you're not a cultured person. You don't even know how to farm. Huang Song. He had so many things to say that he didn't know where to begin. Is there a logical relationship between the two? Jiang Pingji said, are you still not convinced? Huang Song said, if you put it that way, I really can't accept it. Although he wasn't very knowledgeable, he was still a talented student under a famous scholar. His level of education was unquestionable. The farmer in front of him, dressed in brown and walking barefoot in the mud, actually mocked him for not being a cultured person? Huang Song's rebuttal provoked a chorus of jeers from the 5 million viewers in the live stream. Poor Taoist sees your chrysanthemum is poisonous. Come, come, come. Let's guess how long the streamer will use to slap Huang Xiaosong in the face. Tudufeiqiu, slap quickly. Yishaozi, slap quickly. Yonglu Xianyatsi, bet on slap quickly. The streamer's slap is always the freshest. She never stays overnight. With the 5 million viewers cheering for her, Jiang Pingji naturally wouldn't let them down. A fresh slap quickly came out. Jiang Pingji said, you say that you're a cultured person. Then do you know that there's a saying in the book of poetry that goes, damp wilt wilt millet wilt wilt wilt? Huang Song thought about it and nodded. Of course I know. Doesn't this mean that rotten weeds can fertilize the fields? Jiang Pingji curled her lips and continued. Sunzi also said, covering the earth's surface, pulling weeds to grow grain and fertilizing the fields with manure is a matter for farmers and commoners. Doesn't this mean that human and animal manure can enrich the fertility of the land? The Book of Xianxia also talked about related content. Talked about the wonders of manure and stable manure. From this, it can be seen that there are ways to increase fertility. It's just that ordinary people can't do it. You say that you're a cultured person. Don't you even know these things? Huang Song was speechless, but he didn't know how to refute. It was true that he was a cultured person, but which cultured person would pay special attention to these things? Huang Song was speechless after being slapped in the face by Jiang Pingji, but Feng Ju, who was beside him, was almost disgusted. Jiang Pingji saw Feng Ju's speechless expression and couldn't help but sneer. Feng Ju, do you dislike feces? If we don't use feces to increase fertility, the farmland will be squeezed dry sooner or later. Without these methods, how can the output of the farmland supply the millions of mouths in the world? Feng Ju's eyelids drooped slightly. He didn't want to argue with Jiang Pingji. Jiang Pingji continued, these contents can be found in books and the records aren't detailed. The specific operation still needs to be tested. I've visited several old farmers in succession over the past few days. I found out that their farmland produces more grain than others, but the plowing period is shorter. However, the farmland itself isn't fertile. This result is definitely not only due to meticulous service, but also due to other reasons. Huang Song nodded as he listened, a thoughtful look on his face. Jiang Pingji spoke until her mouth was dry. She poured herself a glass of water and drank it to quench her thirst. According to what you said, it's indeed necessary to exist. Experiment with various farming methods and fertilizers. After a certain amount of harvest, promote them to the people. Naturally, the people can take fewer detours. Jiang Pingji said, I want to build more public toilets. Huang Song let out a puzzled, ah. The topic had changed too quickly. Public toilets? What are they? A place to use the toilet and change clothes. Ordinary people farm outside. Occasionally, when they have to use the toilet, they always find a place to relieve themselves. Don't you think it's too dirty? It's more convenient for men, but it's inconvenient for women. Jiang Pingji furrowed her brows. She didn't seem to think that it was dirty. If we build public toilets for the people to use, it'll be convenient for the people, and we can also ensure the cleanliness of the streets. At the same time, we can also accumulate fertilizer. Similarly, I think we can also set up some places to raise pigs and sheep. We can run a meat business and use their stables to fertilize the land. In addition, according to my observation, the peanuts from the barbarians are also wonderful. A certain farmer planted them, and the yield per mu of the field is higher than others. Apart from peanuts, many bean plants also have the wonderful effect of fixing nitrogen. Chapter 14:16. Huang Song looked at Jiang Pingji in confusion, as if he could not understand what was in her head. He teased, if you become a landlord, you'll definitely be the most profitable landlord. This was definitely a big landlord who had been held back by his ambition to dominate the world. Even though Huang Song felt that Jiang Pingji's plan was somewhat naive and reasonable, her way of thinking was worth advocating. If everything went as smoothly as she said, how many ordinary people would benefit in the future and how many innocent people would be saved from famine and food shortage? Jiang Pingji squinted her eyes and said unhappily, you want me to be a landlord? You make it sound like I'm not a big landlord now. I don't live as well as a great landowner. They're just a bunch of good-for-nothings who don't even know how to farm. What's the use of keeping them? When the feudal vassals achieved something, which one of them didn't get drunk and sleep on the knees of beauties, and hold the power of the world when they woke up? Wasn't it all for the sake of enjoying the beauty and power at the peak of one's life? What about her? Jiang Pingji felt that her life was one of toil. She had status and power but no happiness. Jiang Pingji's anger soared. Huang Song was speechless. Farming, this was really too much. After all, most scholars did not even touch this thing. Feng Ju frowned slightly and said, Duke of Lanting's words are too biased and harsh. As the saying goes, every profession has its own specialization. The people under Duke of Lanting's banner each have their own specialties. Farming is not their forte, so it's understandable that they can't do it. You should look for a farmer. Jiang Pingji shook her head and said, Feng Sanlang is wrong. Most of the people I sent to manage the farming have relevant experience and knowledge. It wasn't that they didn't have enough knowledge, but that they stuck to conventions and didn't know how to be flexible. Even I know how to consult farming books to find information related to farming and visit experienced farmers to practice the contents of farming books. Why don't they know how to do this? To put it simply, those who managed the mulberry fields did not put their heart and soul into it. Instead, they focused on the management of the farmers and the harvest. Jiang Pingji did not lack people who could manage with their mouths open. She needed people who were truly focused on the fields. Jiang Pingji said coldly, since they don't have the ability to do so, they shouldn't have occupied the seat and not spilled the beans. Feng Zhu did not continue to refute. After all, it was not suitable for him to get involved in this matter with his current status. Huang Song stepped forward to smooth things over, lest the two of them get angry. Jiang Pingji drank 2 cups of tea from them and only left after she had calmed down a little. After Jiang Pingji left, Feng Zhu said, "This Duke of Lanting is interesting. He doesn't look like someone from a noble family at all." Huang Song raised his eyebrows. "Is that a compliment, Huijie?" Feng Zhu said, "I don't think it's a compliment. I can only say that with a person like the Duke of Lanting, the common people will have a much better life." Huang Song said again, "I remember. Huijie seems to have a classmate from a farmer's family?" Feng Zhu asked him, "There's such a classmate, but Bogeo hopes that you can introduce him to you?" Huang Song said, "It's not bad if we can form a good relationship with him." Feng Zhu said, "Now that I think about it, I haven't contacted him for many years. I don't even know where he is now." The farmer's family had Shinnong as their ancestor. They advocated plowing mulberry and farming. Agricultural production and farmers' thoughts were the mainstream school of thought. However, the farmer's family did not develop well. It was even several times more miserable than the Mahists. At least the Mahists were able to struggle on while at death's door and developed a few loyal followers. However, there was no news about the farmer's family in recent years. Kibbe said that they were in dire straits. It was unknown if they could find a successor to the farmer's family. Jiang Pingji leisurely returned to the manor. On the way, she even bought a snack from the street. At that moment, the 5 million idle spectators were giving her advice. They recommended various farm manure and farming techniques to her. Jiang Pingji watched them seriously and memorized them with her heart. She ate her snacks as she wandered home. Ding dong. A private message sounded. Jiang Pingji glanced at it. It turned out to be a message from the old chief. "Yuaba, why do you have to make it so troublesome? There's an old saying that it's better to teach a man how to fish than to give him a fish." She said, "I know I can go through the back door and beg the old chief to help me purchase farm manure, but it's not a long-term solution. Using farm manure that's hundreds of years ahead of the current era will yield high benefits in the short term, but in the long term, it will kill the possibility of agricultural development in this era. Moreover, the old chief can't always purchase for me, can he? Yuaba. Pulling a seedling to help it grow will indeed kill the infinite potential. You're very diligent." Jiang Pingji said, "I love what I do. After all, I'm their lord. I have to be responsible for the people under my rule." After all, what she needed was not short-term effects but long-term development. She had stayed in this world for 10 years and put in a lot of effort. Naturally, she hoped that everything could develop better. Lucy was just an ordinary person. No matter how long his life was, there was a limit. She hoped that everything could develop in the best direction after she was gone. "Yuaba, you've indeed grown a lot with this awareness." When Jiang Pingji first took over the 7th Corps, she received many complaints from her old subordinates. "I used to be young and impetuous." Jiang Pingji coughed awkwardly. "Old chief, don't expose me at this time." After Jiang Pingji begged for mercy, the old chief showed mercy and did not investigate further. "Someone call Xiaoyu over. Tell him that I have something to discuss." Jiang Pingji wanted to build a public toilet or a livestock farm, which required financial allocation. Of course, she had to find the chief butler to check the account books. Suku hurried over and was about to bow when Jiang Pingji stopped him. "Xiaoyu, you don't have to be so polite. It's more important to talk about business. I want to build public toilets and livestock farms everywhere to raise livestock such as cows, sheep, and pigs. Send someone to come up with a plan and see how much capital it will cost." Jiang Pingji went straight to the point, but Suku was dumbfounded. Why did he have to build a livestock farm and a public toilet out of nowhere? Jiang Pingji explained her purpose in detail. Suka's blank expression gradually turned serious. My lord, it's hard to say how much it will cost. Jiang Pingji raised her eyebrows. Why? Suka said, what's the size and shape of the public toilets? What's the scale of the livestock farm? How many livestock will be raised and how much manpower will be needed? No matter how capable he was, he needed to know this to determine how much it would cost. Jiang Pingji scratched her head. I haven't decided yet. I'll think about it tonight. I'll tell you tomorrow. She was used to being a hands-off boss. She only talked and did not do anything, but now it didn't work. Suka said, there's still a long way to go. There's no hurry. Jiang Pingji rested her chin on her hand and said, there's no hurry. If we don't solve this matter as soon as possible, it'll make me feel uncomfortable. If she could not settle everything before the spring plowing next year, the next year's harvest would be affected. How could she not worry? Chapter 14:17. Just as Feng Ju put down the pen in his hand, familiar footsteps came from the corridor outside the house. Father. Feng Ju packed up the letter unhurriedly. Seeing that it was Feng Ren, his knitted brows relaxed. Feng Ren saw his movements and raised his eyebrows. Did you ask the servant to look for me just now? What's the matter? Feng Ju said, Father, you have a lot of connections. I would like to ask you for a favor and pass this letter to a classmate of mine when I was studying. He was in an awkward situation now. He needed to be careful in his communication. Feng Ju thought about it several times. He felt that it was most appropriate for his father to do this. His second brother Feng Jin could also do it, but the two brothers rarely met. After Feng Jin got married, he separated from the family due to various reasons. He did not live with them anymore, so Feng Ju could only ask his father for help. Feng Ren did not take the letter. He just looked down at the name and signature on the letter. Feng Ju took the initiative to explain, I met the Duke of Lanting today. I thought she might need this person, so I made a recommendation. Feng Ren's brows relaxed. He reached out to take the letter and asked, why don't you do it yourself? If the recommendation was meritorious, Feng Ju could use this opportunity to become an official again. As a father, Feng Ren naturally did not want his youngest son to deal with a 3 or 2-year-old kid all day long. Feng Ju was not born to be a teacher. Asking him to teach and educate people? Misleading the young. Huang Song was also open-minded. He entrusted his daughter to Feng Ju. Wasn't he afraid that she would be taught to deviate? Feng Ju said, I have no interest in an official career. I helped to recommend him today because I think the Duke of Lanting's temperament is interesting. Feng Ren sighed secretly. He had already experienced his youngest son's stubbornness. He had no choice but to let it go. Then, who is this person you recommended? Feng Ren asked casually. Whether Feng Ju had the intention to become an official or not, he took the initiative to use his connections to help Jiang Pingji attract talents. This was a signal of goodwill. Feng Ren naturally did not want Feng Ju's goodwill. Because of the details, they would not be able to form an alliance but instead become enemies. Feng Ju saw through his father's thoughts and said coldly, I'm afraid he is the only remaining descendant of the family. This person's surname is Dou and his name is Shi. His courtesy name is Zhong Guang. He was my classmate when I was studying. According to what the Duke of Lanting said today, she might be able to use this person. Feng Ren asked in surprise, Nong Fu? Although the House of Agriculture was one of the 100 families, it had been in dire straits for hundreds of years. When Feng Ren was an official in the imperial court, he had never heard of any official who was from the House of Agriculture. Although the Mo family was in a miserable state, at least they still had a few descendants. Now that they had received Jiang Pingji's support, they had the potential to prosper. What about the farmers? Most of the members of the School of Agriculture were officials in agriculture. In layman's terms, they were officials related to agriculture. But because the School of Agriculture was in decline, those officials had nothing to do with the School of Agriculture. Feng Ren was quite shocked to hear that his son was the successor of a certain School of Agriculture. Feng Ren asked Feng Ju, although the Duke of Lanting attaches great importance to agriculture, I've never heard her mention this. In the past, Jiang Pingji needed the disciples of the Mahist family. Even if the Mahist family and the Confucians were at odds, she would specifically look for the disciples of the Mahist family. Now that they needed the people of the agricultural family, Why wasn't there any news about it? Feng Zhu briefly explained what he had bumped into that day. In his opinion, Jiang Pingji was indeed an interesting person. I see. This is like her style. Feng Ren showed a cautious and approving expression. Then what can he do? If he was a talent, it would naturally be a good thing. If he was a mediocre talent, not only would he bring harm to the people, but others would also criticize Feng Zhu, who had introduced him, for getting into trouble for no reason. Feng Ren's heart ached for his youngest son, so he naturally had to help him control the situation. Feng Zhu said, "It's hard to say about his talent, but his temperament and work style are what the Duke of Lanting needs the most." What did Jiang Pingji need the most? She needed a talent who was down-to-earth, hardworking, obsessed with agriculture, and willing to compile agricultural books to benefit the people. Even if this person was not from the School of Agriculture, as long as he met these conditions, he would most likely be appointed by Jiang Pingji. He did not need a lot of professional knowledge, but he must have professional self-restraint. After thinking about it, the candidate recommended by Feng Zhu just happened to meet her standards. Good. Feng Ren nodded and said, "As long as this person hasn't moved to another place, I will find a way to send the letter to that person. To avoid wasting time, it's best to inform the Duke of Lanting about this. As long as this person is under the rule of the Duke of Lanting, he will definitely be found." Although Feng Zhu and that person were classmates, they did not have much contact. He only vaguely remembered where the person was from, but he did not even know his home address. Feng Zhu said, "I heard that this person's ancestor served as an agricultural official for several terms during the Xia dynasty. If we follow this clue, we should be able to find him." At the same time, Jiang Pingji also thought of the School of Agriculture after being reminded by the audience in the streaming room. Since she pinned her hopes on the development of science and technology on the Mo family, the School of Agriculture would naturally be indispensable in the development of agriculture. Jiang Pingji searched for information on the School of Agriculture overnight. After reading it, she had a hunch that it would be difficult to find people from the School of Agriculture. The School of Agriculture was roughly divided into two categories. The first category advocated sowing hundreds of grains and advised people to plow mulberry so that they could have enough food and clothing. The second category was related to their political ideology. For example, the ruler and his ministers plowed and ate together. In layman's terms, the ruler should plow and cook together with the people. From a modern point of view, this was promoting equal labor for everyone. There seemed to be nothing wrong with it, but would the feudal rulers in ancient times care about this? Seeing this, Jiang Pingji knew why the School of Agriculture was worse off than the Mo family. This political ideology was like stepping on a landmine. In this aspect, the Confucian school was more favored by the rulers. It was no wonder that it was later revered as the head of the 100 schools of thought. Speaking of which, can I find a decent successor for the School of Agriculture? Jiang Pingji was not confident about this. Kujiaogifan, what are you afraid of? Streamer, you have to believe that you are the chosen one. The talents you need will automatically come to you. Wuxing Dianji, you might even be able to cultivate an ancient version of the father of paddy. Kenbi Zhongji, even salted fish have dreams. As the chief instructor of 5 million salted fish, the streamer must be the most salted one. Some salted fish are not serious, but some salted fish are very serious. Kumiko Lemon, actually I've always had a doubt. Didn't the School of Mo and the Confucian school not get along? Why can Zhang Ping, Xiao Guang and the others receive high salaries and treatment in the Confucian school? I've watched the streaming for many years, but I've never seen them fight because of the difference in ideology. Chapter 14:18. Canteen Daffin Auntie, I don't agree. Speaking of scheming, isn't the streamer the ancestor? Can low-level scheming be *cheese attract her interest? He deeply suspected that this was the main reason why Jiang Pingji liked practical people. Not long after, the bullet screen received tens of thousands of likes and it suddenly became a hot topic. Jiang Pingji was speechless. These salted fishes were too much. Did she look like a person with a belly full of evil ideas? Jiang Pingji coughed softly. She could not see the awkwardness of being exposed. She highly affirmed the speculations of the serious salted fishes and chose to ignore the unserious bullet screen. Old driver is right. That's the general situation. Jiang Pingji supported her cheeks and said, I only need practical people. Those scheming fellows don't seem to have any other use other than wasting the salary I give them. They occupy the latrine but don't shit. What do I need them for? If there are too many troublemakers who stir up internal strife, it will easily corrupt the atmosphere. It will be difficult to lead the people's hearts. It was not that people who were good at scheming were useless, but for Jiang Pingji at the current stage their value was too little. No matter how one looked at it, she admired practical people more. Because industry thrives the country. Jiang Pingji rarely called out names. Naturally, she did not know that the old salted fish was so happy that he jumped 3 feet high. The corners of his mouth were about to reach his ears. Lao Siji Lianming. Sob sob sob, the streamer's voice is so nice. I feel like I'm blessed by the moon god and Cupid at the same time. Mama, did you hear that? The sweetheart I've been chasing for 10 years finally took pity on me. She called me old driver. The salted fish screamed crazily in his heart. Mujio Yijiujia Wanli, you're one of the ancient big shots in the streaming room. Be more reserved. The salted fish who was not called out smiled on the surface, but his heart was burning with jealousy. The bullet screen was full of emojis of secretly gritting teeth in jealousy. 5 million salted fishes. Why did they get special treatment? This luck was even more enviable than winning the lottery with 5 million yuan. No matter how lucky the salted fishes were, they were still not as lucky as Jiang Pingji. She was worried about finding a suitable candidate. The next day, Feng Ren paid her a visit and tactfully mentioned that Feng Ju was recommending talents for her. Jiang Pingji's hands trembled and she raised her eyebrows in surprise. Even the way she addressed Feng Ju became more intimate. Huaijia's schoolmate? Jiang Pingji was a person who held a grudge. Feng Ju was indifferent to her, so she addressed Feng Ju as Feng Sanlang. Since Feng Ju had expressed his goodwill to her, she might as well change her attitude. Feng Ren didn't notice it. He said with a smile, "My son admires that person very much. He should be good." Jiang Pingji asked, "Where is he?" If that person lived very far away, it would take 2 to 3 months for Jiang Pingji to conquer him. It would take too much time. When Feng Ren came to see Jiang Pingji, he naturally knew her address. Coincidentally, the man was from Shangyang County's Yang Mountain. His ancestor had been an agricultural official several times, so following this trail was easy to find. "So you're saying that he's from the same hometown as you? If he is truly talented, I would like to recruit him to work for me." Jiang Pingji finished speaking with a smile, but soon after she revealed a somewhat awkward expression. She said, "There's something that you don't know. The promotion of talents this time was related to the livelihood of the people, so the candidates had to be very careful. I'd like to go and take a look myself, but I'm busy with worldly affairs and can't get away." "Go there personally?" Feng Ren was shocked and secretly speechless. It was just a farmer's talent. She could just send an official document to recruit him. Why did she need a feudal lord to go there personally? For this talent to go there personally, it showed that her next move was extremely important. At least it could cause a great change in the power structure. In the blink of an eye, several thoughts flashed through Feng Ren's mind. Jiang Pingji acted as if she didn't see it. She continued, "Speaking of which, the construction of the branch of the Jinlin Academy in Shangyang County is about to start." Feng Ren instantly understood. He smiled bitterly and said, "Master Lanting is busy with affairs. I'm afraid you can't do it yourself. If you don't mind my old age and incompetence, why don't you entrust this matter to me? Coincidentally, I'm also going to Shangyang County to supervise the construction of the branch. I can handle both matters on the way." Other than Qing Qing, Feng Ren, Yuanjing and Wan Xian, these great scholars were precisely not Jiang Pingji's aides and retainers. She couldn't order them around at will. For example, regarding the branch of the Jinlin Academy, she had discussed with these educational experts. She didn't make arbitrary decisions. This time she wanted to entrust Feng Ren to make a trip on her behalf. Jiang Pingji also had to subtly hint crazily. Feng Ren accepted it tactfully. If he didn't, he could pretend to be deaf and mute. Fortunately, Feng Ren didn't refuse. Instead, he agreed with a smile. "Thank you for your understanding. I'll write a letter now." Feng Ren finally couldn't hold back his curiosity. He asked, "He's just a farmer. If he's a genius, he's not worthy of being treated so seriously by Master Lanting. I have many questions in my mind. Therefore I dare to ask, why does Master Lanting value him so much?" Jiang Pingji said, "This person may be able to benefit millions of people and eliminate famine. Not to mention writing a letter, It's not too much to go there personally. Feng Ren's heart was pounding. He was a little stunned. Could the person recommended by his unreliable youngest son really carry Jiang Pingji's high hopes? Talents couldn't be recommended blindly. If the recommended person didn't have any real ability, it would ruin the reputation of the guarantor. He deliberated and said, "If that's the case, I'll make a trip on behalf of Master Lanting. If that person is really talented, I'll definitely bring him back." Feng Ren was also a sly old fox. He didn't say too much. Instead, he left a way out. If the person was talented, he'd bring him back. Thought he'd stop. Anyway, he couldn't blame it on him. Jiang Pingji saw through him but didn't say anything. She smiled but didn't say anything. Not only did she give Feng Ren the letter for the expedition, but she also gave him the draft of the agricultural book that she'd sorted out a while ago. If that person was well-versed, he'd definitely see the value of those drafts. If he wasn't well-versed, Jiang Pingji wouldn't have wasted her effort. From the beginning to the end, the salted fish in the streaming room was the most surprised. Kuzagio Chifan. I'm giving the streamer 666 brainlessly. She's indeed the chosen one. She gets whatever she wants. Yesterday she was still worried about the farmer. Today Feng Ren came to deliver a pillow. What could be more awesome than this? Liren Choshuang. Feng Ren, you've gained countless fans with this move. Looking at the screen full of 666 comments, Jiang Pingji couldn't help but laugh. She secretly analyzed the hidden intention of Feng Ren's move. She lowered her head and was lost in thought. Unexpectedly, the direction of the bullet screen in the streaming room changed instantly. When she came back to her senses, countless exclamation marks almost drowned her in the bullet screen. What's happening? Tudu Feichio. Streamer, look at the streaming room. The streaming room? What's wrong with the streaming room? Jiang Pingji was surprised. She carefully looked for the difference in the streaming room and found that there was an additional announcement. To thank the audience for their support over the years, the streaming room has unlocked the segment, Dream of 1,000 Years. Viewers, old and new, are welcome to participate. What the hell? Chapter 1419. Kuai Xiaomeng Exin. A class representative can explain. What is this Dream of 1,000 Years? Blue drawer. It sounds like something I don't understand, but it sounds awesome. Carefree hee no. It's more like a magical welfare reward. I'm super curious. The salted fish on the red bullet screen was surprised and curious like a baby. The salted fish on the blue bullet screen was one-sided. Kuai duo zhangda. Oh my god, have you fallen? Dream of 1,000 Years is out. Yang family's little princess. Is Dream of 1,000 Years going to be reopened? Are those idiots going to pounce on us again? Sijun Bourgeois, let's go. I thought this streamer was a decent streamer. I didn't expect her to hide so much. Scary. The salted fish on the blue bullet screen obviously knew what was going on. The bullet screen was filled with shock, fear, disappointment, scolding, and some even said that Jiang Pingji was a scheming B*T. After pretending to be a vassal for so many years, she finally couldn't help but reveal her fox's tail. It was disgusting. Seeing that the content on the blue bullet screen was getting more and more outrageous, many of the salted fish on the red bullet screen could no longer sit still. They all stood up and cheered for Jiang Pingji. They hadn't even figured out what the Dream of 1,000 Years program was. Why did these guys start to hate the person they liked? Kneel and call daddy. Hey. I can't hold my temper anymore. What do you mean? Scolding people has to follow the basic rules. Did our streamer offend you? If you don't want to watch the stream, get out. Don't occupy the latrine and take up our spot. Do you really think salted fish like us are useless? The salted fish on the red bullet screen had always claimed to be Jiang Pingji's loyal fans. After all, they were Jiang Pingji's solid support since the beginning. The salted fish on the blue bullet screen were just a group of guys who joined later. If they weren't separated by a dimension, they would have started fighting. Didlema, bah. Don't blindly protect this streamer. I've finally seen through her. No matter what persona she has, she's still a beggar on the internet. The previous streamer was also a talented woman. She was a gentle, elegant, and dignified classical beauty. She applauded for the sake of watching the stream with men. Wasn't the so-called Dream of 1,000 Years a platform for chicken recruitment? The previous host only went online after he was done with his F*** king persona and pretentious enough. Now that the host is the strongest duke in the world, the price of going online will definitely be much more expensive than before. This viewer's bullet screen received a lot of likes from the blue bullet screen salted fish. Because of the previous time traveler, Dream of 1,000 Years, was more famous than Tavern Heaven on Earth in their world. As long as one had money, one could place a task in the Dream of 1,000 Years section of the live broadcast room. After the host accepted the task, the audience could experience sensory enjoyment in their dreams that was infinitely close to reality. A rich man could order and choose to have sex with any woman he wanted. Previously, there were many tycoons who placed orders to have sex with the former host in the dream. After they were tired of it, they ordered other women. This was simply a large-scale brothel. Speaking up to this point, some people had doubts. The previous host had gone too far. Could it be that no victim had found any clues? How did he find out? The previous host, who was also the queen of time travel, Huiyun, had the help of the system. She could casually throw out a loyalty talisman and control an ordinary person, making them dead set on her. If the transmigrator couldn't bear to waste the loyalty talisman, she had other evil ways to control people, ensuring that the victim wouldn't find out anything after the matter was over. Even if it was a young girl who had never done anything, she had a way to deceive everyone after the deed was done. She ensured that the girl's future husband wouldn't be able to tell that his wife had already lost her virginity to countless men. Using this method, the transmigrator successfully worked as a brothel keeper for more than a decade. The Dongqing Palace and Zhongzhou Palace were considered the hardest-hit areas. The palace maids and concubines suffered greatly, and it was unknown how many innocent women were harmed. To this day, many otakus still had hundreds of gigabytes of videos stored on their computers, enlightening countless youths with X knowledge. The blue bullet screen salted fish naturally didn't know these inside stories. However, when the transmigrator was a host, the live broadcast room was indeed foul. 9 out of 10 times, there would be inharmonious content. Many otakus couldn't climb over the wall to watch Japanese porn, so they simply collected the recordings of the live broadcast room. The content of the recordings was more hardcore and explosive than many other movies. Most importantly, they didn't charge money. A few years later, these recordings had a huge impact on the production chain of a certain business in Japan, causing a period of depression and loss. All kinds of dark history could be said to be innumerable. The blue bullet screen salted fish saw the words, "Dream of 1,000 Years," and subconsciously thought of the fear of the live broadcast room being dominated by the 8th letter. Under Jiang Pingji's management, the live broadcast room had already escaped from the shadow of the previous host. People had also forgotten about the dark history, but it didn't mean that they had forgotten it. All they needed was an opportunity and all the memories would come back. With the help of the blue bullet screen, the red salted fish finally knew what Dream of 1,000 Years meant. However, Tudu Feichio, the host, would never do such a thing. Otherwise, I would live broadcast eating rice fields. Sankei, I agree with the ancient big boss. Gui Kai Guo Fengxiu. I'd rather believe in the sexy host who kills people online than believe that she would do such a thing. I realize that you guys really don't have a clue. Before you suspect the host, ask yourselves, in terms of status, wealth, and power, can you compare to the host? In terms of talent, temperament, and looks, can you compare to Beauty Ci? Lao Ciji Lianmeng, you don't even have the right to touch the corner of her clothes. Do you really think that you can do whatever you want just because you have some money for breakfast? The 5 million salted fish on the red and blue bullet screen. That's heart-wrenching, buddy. The salted fish clutched their chests and vomited blood. The ancient big boss was indeed an ancient big boss. His words were sharp and ruthless. With a few words, he could cause an infinite psychological trauma to people. They didn't have Wei Ci's talent, temperament, and looks. What made them think that the host would like them? They didn't have the status, wealth, and power of the host. What made them think that the host would care about their money for breakfast? In summary, they really didn't even have the right to touch the corner of the host's clothes. Ngong carrot ngong. Be a baboon. Although it's the truth, cough cough, the big boss should be merciful. After all, salted fish have a fragile glass heart. The live broadcast room was treacherous and unpredictable. Jiang Pingji lowered her head and carefully read the introduction of Dream of 1,000 Years. System, Dream of 1,000 Years. Past life and present life. Guess who you were in your past life. In order to thank the audience for their support over the years, And to give the audience the opportunity to have close contact with their favorite host, every week one lucky audience member will be selected to go through 12 hours of dream travel. Jiang Pingji, this dream of 1,000 years, was completely different from the dream of 1,000 years that the salted fish were talking about. But, Chapter 1420. You may not believe it, but the African baby finally became popular and transmigrated. The original poster posted a screenshot on the first floor. There was a line of golden words on it. Congratulations to the viewer Yi Wu Yenling for winning the first Dream of 1,000 Years event. The post sank as soon as it was posted. Not long after, it was scooped up by countless salted fish and quickly became a popular post. Comment 33. F***CK. I found a shameful lucky emperor. The content of the post makes people feel uncomfortable. Comment 108. I never expected that a group of ancient big shots would be defeated by a green-skinned guy from the forum. The forum was called the Empress Streaming Forum. One look at the name and you knew it was a forum for the livestream. The members were very active. The ancient big shot Tudu Feichio was the founder of the forum and the editor of the related magazine. The members who stayed in the forum for years were mostly at the yellow underwear level. The green-skinned guy was a newcomer. Who wouldn't be jealous? They were loyal to the streamer. Why didn't such a good thing happen to them but to a green-skinned guy? Comment 999. OP, open the door. I'm going to hack you to death. Off. Comment 1008. Sob, I thought it was photoshopped. I didn't expect it to be real. The probability was 1 in 5 million. With such good luck, why didn't you buy a lottery ticket? Why are you fighting for a slot in the live stream? I was so angry that my heart ached. I was jealous. Comment 2035. I'll sharpen my knife in secret. When I'm done I'll hack you to death. Comment 4088. I'm waiting for the OP to transmigrate and fail. Comment 5555. It's our red team who got the first blood. If the next dimension got the slot, wouldn't we vomit? The OP helped me send a message to the streamer. I've washed up, stripped and waited for her on the bed. Why isn't she here yet? It's already 520. Most people were envious, jealous and hateful. A small number of people treated the OP like a koi fish and wished they could repost it every day. The OP, everyone is so passionate. I'll cherish the opportunity to touch the streamer's hand. I'll tell you how it feels when I come back. After attracting a wave of hatred, the OP quickly went offline. Not long after, the 5 million salted fish saw a small screen appear in Jiang Pingji's livestream. They clicked on it and saw an unfamiliar livestream. The streaming room was attached to Jiang Pingji's room, so they could watch it on the same screen. Jiang Pingji clicked on it too. Oh my god, I actually transmigrated. In the picture, the woman with a delicate and classic appearance widened her eyes in shock. She raised her hands and turned them over and over. The woman's hair was combed into a woman's bun. She was supposed to be gentle and virtuous, but she made an action that was completely inconsistent with her temperament and appearance. She gently pinched her face and couldn't help but let out a cry of pain and let go. I just fell asleep on my bed and as soon as I opened my eyes I ran here. I'm shivering. Host, where are you? The woman looked at the screen of the live stream with tears in her eyes and could not help but cry for help. Although it was only a 12-hour experience, she was shocked and scared to suddenly appear in an unfamiliar environment. The group of salted fishes fell silent. Jiang Pingji coughed softly and immediately sent a bullet screen to her. Host V, don't panic. Look around and see if there's anything to prove your identity. Oh, got it. The woman was not used to the clothes on her body and almost stepped on the hem of her skirt. Fortunately, there was no one around to see her embarrassment. She quickly moved to the bronze mirror on the dressing table and tried hard to stretch her face in front of it. She looked left and right and murmured, I'm sure it's a soul transmigration. There were some bamboo slips on the table in the room. He tried hard to identify them. She stared until her eyes were sore and barely recognized what was written on them. Zhou Guang. This name is quite masculine. Is this body called Zhou Guang? She flipped through the other slips. Some were Shanju Sanren, some were Zhou Guang, and some were Dou Xianren. So, what is this body called? While she was puzzled, the door of the bedroom was gently opened. A woman dressed as a maid bowed gently and said, My lady, there's a distinguished guest at home. The woman had her back facing the maid, so the maid could not see the stiff expression on her face. Dumbstruck, crazy, screamed Jade. Who could tell her what to do next? Ah, help. When the salted fishes saw her reaction, they all convulsed with laughter. This reaction was too funny. Perhaps the heavens heard the woman's voice. A prompt appeared at the bottom of the streaming screen. System prompt. Please report to the master. I'll go over now. The woman forced herself to stay calm. Her voice was stiff as she imitated the system prompt and replied to the maid. The maid was surprised but did not think too much. The lady had caught a cold a while ago and only got better after half a month. It was normal for her voice to be stiff. After sending the maid away, the woman suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. She collapsed on the ground like a dehydrated salted fish. She muttered to the streaming screen, SOS. Based on the current situation, this body did not seem to belong to a commoner. What posture should she use to not expose herself? Speaking of which, will the baby not last 12 hours before being eliminated as a demon? The salted fishes laughed after hearing that. 12 hours? Can't you be a little more ambitious? The woman looked dispirited. She took a deep breath and the scenes and images of Jiang Pingji's streaming appeared in her mind. She secretly encouraged herself. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. You have a solid backing of 5 million and the streamer behind you. It turned out that the woman's worries were unnecessary. She was here to experience it. It was not like she could not really go back. The system would naturally open the door for her. This family's surname was Dou. This was the territory of Yangshan in Shangyang County. The woman blinked her eyes after hearing that. As one of the fans of the streaming room, she naturally knew the latest developments in the streaming room. The surname Dou in Yangshan in Shangyang County. Could it be that this family is the talented farmer that the streamer is looking for? The woman muttered to herself. On the surface, she ordered the servants to prepare to receive the guest according to the system's prompt. The maids did not suspect anything. Instead, they felt that the lady was exceptionally straightforward that day. The only thing that was awkward was, she seemed to be suffering from an eye disease. Her eyes could not help but stare at a certain place. It looked strange and scary. There was a distinguished guest at the door today. The guest was the well-known former head of the Feng family, Feng Ren, one of the famous scholars. Others did not know why Feng Ren was there, but the woman knew that he was there on behalf of Jiang Pingji to recruit Daoist. Thinking of this, the woman suddenly recalled, isn't Zhong Guang Daoist's courtesy name? This body is most likely Daoist's wife? She muttered to herself. She followed the system's prompt and turned left and right. When she reached the outside of the main hall, she heard Feng Ren's voice. System, please pay attention to the prompt. Do not do anything that will ruin the character's design, so as not to cause trouble to the original owner. The woman nodded quickly. She quickly reacted and stopped what she was doing. Others could not see the streaming room's screen and the system's prompt. Her action looked like she was possessed. I really don't know how the streamer can ignore the streaming room for 10 years and not be affected by the bullet screen. The bullet screen was full of obscene words and jokes. She held it in until her cheeks hurt. As she muttered, she realized that the two people in the hall who were chatting were looking at her. The woman was speechless. Oh my. Chapter 1421. As a loyal audience in the streaming room, the woman occasionally daydreamed about transmigration. If she was lucky enough to transmigrate, what would she do? Would she go with the flow and be a reserved and noble lady of an aristocratic family, enjoying the authentic ancient customs? Or would she rebel and release her nature to live a modern woman's style in the strict ancient times? Or would she learn martial arts from literature and imitate the streamer to be a heroine who was not inferior to any man? Would she be full of vigor and vanish into thin air while talking and laughing? However, no matter how much she imagined and daydreamed, it could not offset the embarrassment and nervousness when she was in the arena. Even if the transmigration was only for 12 hours, she did not want to lose her reputation as a Mary Sue in front of 5 million people. Kojiaoqi fan, don't panic, lucky queen. I believe you are the fattest. Shall we Chuangduan, hypnotize yourself that you are a streamer with an aura of 2.8 meters. What are Feng Ren and Daoist? The woman could not help but twitch the corner of her mouth. She also wanted to calm down, but the bullet screen in the streaming room was too much of a hindrance. He could not imagine how Jiang Pingji did it. How could she completely ignore the bullet screen full of obscene jokes? I can't do it. The woman was not an actress. Her ability to control her emotions was only at an ordinary level. Although it could not be said that all her emotions were written on her face, it was not to the extent that she could not show her emotions. She was not aware of it, but others saw the subtle expressions on her face. Sadness, surprise, fear, retreat. All kinds of emotions flashed through her face. Feng Ren was speechless. This was Dou Shi's wife? Dou Shi looked at his wife with surprise and worry, but there was no reprimand or displeasure. It could be seen that Dou Shi and his wife had a very good relationship. Master Feng, this is my wife. Dou Shi smiled and went forward to hold the woman's hand. She suddenly stiffened and her fingers seemed to shrink back. Dou Shi was puzzled, but he did not let her break away. Otherwise it would be difficult to smooth things over in front of Feng Ren. My wife has admired your talent since she was still in her boudoir. Now that she heard that you are a guest in our house, I'm afraid she is overjoyed. Hearing that their idol of many years had come to visit in person, it was understandable that the fans would be too happy to do something unruly. Feng Ren said with a smile, I saw that your mansion is in good order just now. I guess it's because your wife runs the house well and takes care of things well. The woman bowed in a slightly stiff manner. Her cheeks were flushed as she said embarrassedly, I don't deserve your praise. Mister, you're too kind. From an outsider's point of view, her reaction coincided with what Dou Shi had just said. The awkward atmosphere was immediately alleviated. After sitting down, the woman's cheeks continued to redden, and she did not dare to raise her head to look at him for a long time. Zhang Jike's ping pong. I broke out in a cold sweat just now. After this stage, the next part should be easier, right? Tudu Feiqiu, your acting skills are not bad. Unbeknownst to him, the woman was already crying in her heart. She was really scared and worried. In a completely unfamiliar environment, facing a complete stranger, her heart was in her throat, but she could only brace herself and hold on. Dou Shi and Feng Ren noticed the woman's uneasiness and embarrassment. Fortunately, both of them were gentlemen and their current focus had nothing to do with her, so they did not dwell on her. Dou Shi did not know Feng Ren's purpose this time, but the woman with the script knew. Feng Ren came to test Dou Shi's ability. If Dou Shi met the requirements, he would be promoted immediately. The woman tried her best to sit upright and secretly sighed. The feeling of watching a live broadcast and being there was really different. She came just in time and Feng Ren and Dou Shi had not even exchanged greetings. Dou Shi was secretly guessing Feng Ren's purpose this time. Could it be that Feng Ren's purpose this time was related to his own future? But how could he be worthy of Feng Ren's personal visit? As far as he knew, there were a lot of talents in the Lanting General's camp. How could he be short of one person, let alone Feng Ren? While he was secretly wondering, Feng Ren, the old fox, had already begun to test him. Dou Shi did not realize this, but the surrounding women were so excited that they clenched their hands on their knees, wrinkling the fabric of their clothes. The show was about to begin. May I ask, sir, why are you here? Dou Shi secretly pondered, and he also had a faint expectation in his heart. He tentatively asked Feng Ren, Yang Mountain is remote. If you want to do something, it might not be convenient. As Zhongguang said, I do have some difficulties here. Feng Ren said with a smile, under the order of the Lanting General, I am supervising the construction of the branch of the Golden Scale Academy, and the location of the branch is near Yang Mountain. I'm ashamed to say that I don't know much about Yang Mountain. If I want to build a big building here, I need help from someone who knows everything. Before I left, I heard from Huijie that there was a classmate who lived in Yang Mountain for generations and he was familiar with construction. Maybe he could help. When I came here, I asked around and then I shamelessly came to you. Dou Shi was stunned for a moment. He did not expect that Feng Ren came to him because of Feng Zhu's recommendation. He said humbly, this is just a small matter. Sir, you can just send someone to inform me. Why do you need to come to my house in person? Although it was a help, it was also an excellent opportunity for Dou Shi and others could not ask for it. If it was done well, he might be able to build a relationship with the Feng family, and he would have more connections in the future. It's not just for this, Feng Ren said with a smile. Recently I've been compiling books for children, and the content is related to the 100 schools of thought. The 100 schools of thought have a wide range of works, and even the Feng family has not collected many books. I heard from Huijie that Zhongguang is a descendant of the School of Agriculture, so you must have a lot of agricultural books in your house. I shamelessly came to your house to ask for advice from Zhongguang. It would be great if I could borrow 1 or 2 books. After listening to Feng Ren's explanation, Doshi naturally did not doubt it anymore. Instead, he was a little fearful. For a famous scholar to ask for guidance from a nameless junior, the other party was giving him face. How could Doshi dare to casually agree? Feng Ren used this topic to test Doshi's depth. The Feng family had collected a lot of agricultural books, and Feng Ren had also dabbled in this area, so it was not a problem to teach him. Doshi also completely let down his guard and told him everything he knew. As a small part of the 100 schools of thought, the school of agriculture had always not been valued. It had been a long time since Doshi talked about the school of agriculture with someone so freely. Once he started talking, he could not stop talking. He was so immersed in it that he did not notice Feng Ren's smile getting wider. As a bystander, the woman naturally did not want to miss Feng Ren's reaction. Judging from his attitude, Feng Ren was quite satisfied with Doshi. It seemed like there was a chance. When Doshi's mouth was dry from talking, Feng Ren took out a roll from his sleeve and said, "I came across something a while ago." This was naturally the draft that Jiang Pingji had given to Feng Ren. Doshi asked, "This is?" Feng Ren said, "Looking at the content, it seems to be closely related to the School of Agriculture." Doshi's curiosity was aroused and he boldly borrowed it from Feng Ren. He did not feel anything at first glance, but when he looked at it carefully, he felt like he had found a treasure. Feng Ren did not disturb Doshi but waited with a smile. From the corner of his eye, he saw that Doshi's wife was looking at him with a look of understanding. He had the illusion that a junior had seen through his plans. Chapter 1422. The woman saw through it but didn't say it out loud. Feng Ren had a better impression of her. On the other side, Doshi was getting more and more excited. He couldn't help but ask, "Where did you find this?" Feng Ren showed just the right amount of confusion. "Why are you so excited? Could it be that this item is a supreme treasure?" Doshi suppressed his excitement. "I don't know if it's a treasure or not, but if it's used properly, it's worth tens of thousands of gold coins." Although the draft was written carelessly, Doshi could see the value in it. Unlike the obscure and simple farming books, the content of the draft was concise and clear, almost like a vernacular. The content was also very interesting. It went from shallow to deep, progressing step by step from a rough general category to a detailed description of each subcategory. There were also many farming plans. These plans were fresh to Doshi. This was like a key that opened the door to a new world, giving him a feeling of enlightenment. "Oh, really?" Feng Ren pretended to be surprised. Doshi suppressed his excitement and said with a smile, "If I didn't know who the author is, I would really like to visit you and have a good discussion." Feng Ren asked, "What do you mean?" Doshi said, "Dongqing is peaceful under the governance of Lord Lanting, but other places are suffering from famine. In the final analysis, it's because the good farmland produces too little food. There are many reasons for limiting the output of farmland, but the most fatal one is the fertility of farmland. The fertility of farmland was a big problem that was difficult to solve. It fundamentally restricted agricultural output. Even fertile farmland couldn't stand continuous farming. Sooner or later it would degenerate due to the lack of fertility. For sustainable development, they could only choose to stop farming and let the fertility of the farmland recover by itself. Once they stopped farming, it meant that there would be no food production during the farming period, which undoubtedly increased the food pressure. Jiang Pingji had been fighting for years. In order to maintain the supply, she could only cultivate wasteland while farming continuously. In the long run, it was tantamount to drinking poison to quench thirst. Feng Ren nodded and said, "What do you mean?" "I don't know who wrote this book. The content is bold and novel. I've never heard of it." Doshi pointed to the draft and said, "Even if others think it's wild and unrealistic, I think this person's idea is very logical. I think it must be written by a famous farmer. This person wanted to use manpower to replenish the fertility of the farmland. His plan was clear and specific, and most of it was traceable and reasonable. Many people don't know how to use the fertilizer, but those who know how to use it don't know how much is appropriate. They don't even know how to use it to maximize the benefits of the farmland. This person is very meticulous. Not only did he think of everything, he even provided detailed steps. When he spoke up to hear, Doshi spoke with fervor and composure, and he seemed to be unable to stop. The reason why good farmland was called good farmland and had a higher output than ordinary farmland was naturally because the farmland was more fertile. If external forces were used to interfere with the fertility of the farmland could be maintained at an extremely high level of fertility without the need for plowing and fallow. Would there be any need to worry about a high harvest? The Dou family was considered a relatively large and wealthy family in Yangshan. Dou Shi himself was a member of a farmer's family, so he was very familiar with the process of farming. In order to increase output, he often studied in this area, and he had also summed up a set of farming experience. It was precisely because of this that the Dou family's output was much higher than that of others. However, comparing Dou Shi's method to the contents of the draft was like comparing a pearl to the bright moon. Looking at the contents of the draft, there should be more than this. Dou Shi sighed and said, I don't know who it is, but if I'm lucky enough to meet him, I must talk to him through the night. As soon as he finished speaking, Feng Ren, Madame Dou, and the 5 million salted fish all looked at him strangely. Talk to him through the night? Ha, in your dreams. Tudu Feiqiu, Beauty Ci said that sleeping together and talking to him through the night are all benefits that belong to him. Although Feng Ren did not know the relationship between Jiang Pingji and Wei Ci, he knew that it was unlikely that a female noble would be too intimate with a subordinate of the opposite sex. Dou Shi's theory was passable, but he did not know how it would turn out in practice. After all, there would always be people who said one thing and did another. Feng Ren tricked Dou Shi into leaving with a few words. Seeing this, Madame Dou also wanted to follow. Dou Shi advised, Madam, it's very windy outside and you've just recovered from a cold. It's better for you to recuperate in the manor. The woman did not know how to respond before following him out. Feng Ren, who was at the side, helped her. Although it's important to recuperate, a proper relaxation can also help with recovery. Your wife's complexion is good, so she should be fine. Dou Shi said awkwardly, my wife is a woman after all. If I go with you, I'm afraid I'll be a hindrance. Feng Ren smiled and said, it's okay. Dou Shi did not know why he came, but this madam seemed to have seen through him and was watching the show from the side. One could imagine that she was also a clear-minded person. Hen Xingzao, oh my god, I don't know why, but when I see Big Boss Feng Ren smile, I feel creepy. It's more than creepy, the woman muttered to herself. When she was in front of Feng Ren, she felt that this old fox was more uneasy than she had imagined. The three of them changed into clothes that were convenient for traveling. The woman also changed into a simpler outfit and wore wooden clogs. The woman was embarrassed to find that Feng Ren and Dou Shi did not make a sound when they walked, but she was the only one who made a clanking sound when she stepped on the wooden clogs. The woman was speechless. Hum hum hum, and each carrot. Dou Shi also looked at his wife in surprise and Feng Ren looked at her with a faint smile. She was so stressed. She felt that she could be exposed at any moment. I was a little sick earlier. If I've been rude, please forgive me. The system did not prompt her, so she could only rack her brain to think of a way to deal with it. Fortunately, Feng Ren was not a calculative person, so he did not criticize her. The Dou family had a lot of farmland and Dou Shi took care of a few acres himself. They were considered experimental fields. Because of proper care, the crops were growing well. Dou Shi was not only good at theory, but he was also very good at practice. He knew that the political views of the farmers were not in line with the mainstream, and he did not have any background, so officialdom was not suitable for him. Therefore, although he wanted to become an official, he also knew what he was doing. Most of his thoughts were on how to run the family business. As a rich family in Yangshan, running the farmland well was equivalent to running the family business well. Dou Shi combined theory with practice and the harvest of the farmland was very good. Even if it was a disaster year, he could still make a small sum of money. If God was kind to him, he would make a lot of money this year. It was rare to see a landlord as pure and unpretentious as him in this world. You could not see what other landlords looked like, but he had a good reputation in Yangshan. Feng Ren had never worked in the field, but he still had a theory. The woman also had the help of the salted fish in the live broadcast room, and from time to time she would say something amazing. Feng Ren praised, your wife is really not an ordinary woman. With such insight, no wonder you can be in harmony with Zhong Guang. The woman smiled shyly. Chapter 1423. Feng Ren and Dou Shi chatted happily as if they were old friends. The more Feng Ren knew about Dou Shi, the more satisfied he was. However, he was not in a hurry to reveal the purpose of the expedition. Instead, he secretly sounded Dou Shi out and wanted to know what Dou Shi thought of the Duke of Lanting. No matter how great Jiang Pingji was, There were still many conservative people who did not buy into her. Though she did not look like a pedantic person, but it was hard to guarantee that he would not be conflicted because of Jiang Pingji's gender. There were precedents of people refusing to conquer because of their gender. I didn't expect Yang Mountain to be such a paradise. Feng Ren smiled as he took off his bamboo hat and put it in front of his chest. With one hand behind his back, he stood beside the field and looked into the distance. He said, Lanting Duke plans to build a branch here so that the children can stay away from the mortal world and focus on their studies. Zhou Xian smiled and said, It's a blessing for the people of Yang Mountain that the Duke of Lanting has taken pity on Yang Mountain. Even though Zhou Xian had lived in Yang Mountain for a long time and rarely went out, he had heard of the famous Golden Scale Academy. If the branch could be located in Yang Mountain, it would undoubtedly bring a large number of people to Yang Mountain, and the increase in population would naturally boost the local economy. Feng Ren said, Oh? Zhongguang has seen through everything. There would always be people who liked to argue. Many mediocre people felt that the establishment of a branch academy was a bad thing. They felt that it was a huge construction project that wasted manpower and money. Zhou Xian was a commoner, but he could see through everything so clearly, which made Feng Ren like him even more. I'm just trying to show off in front of an expert. Zhou Xian said humbly, I don't deserve such praise. Zhou Xian was a wealthy landowner in Yangshan, and he was also the son of a farmer. Naturally, his eyes were closer to the common people. Of course, he knew how good it was for Yangshan to build a branch. Even a pig could take off standing on a wind gap, not to mention a hurricane in the Golden Scale Institution. Humility is a virtue, but you can't undervalue yourself. Feng Ren said with a smile. When the matter of the school division was first announced, many people were not optimistic about it and some even slandered it. There were many famous people among them. Thinking about it, it makes me laugh. These words were indirectly praising Zhou Xian for being as knowledgeable as those famous scholars. Zhou Xian didn't know whether to agree or not, so he could only change the topic. Lord Lanting has the ability to rule the heavens and the earth. It's not easy for ordinary people to see through his thoughts. It wasn't that Zhou Xian was talented, nor was it that the famous scholars who had misjudged him were useless. It was clear that the person in question was too scheming and too capable. The smile on Feng Ren's lips grew wider. Logically speaking, he who was born in the Confucian school was unlikely to like Zhou Xian, who was born in the peasant school. After all, the knowledge and political ideas of the two families were in conflict. However, this did not prevent Feng Ren from appreciating Zhou Xian. There weren't many interesting young people like him anymore. From what you've said, Zhongguang seems to hold the Duke of Lanting in high regard. Feng Ren asked with a smile, What do you think of her? Zhou Xian shook his head and said, A dignified marquis and a wise ruler. How can a commoner judge him? In a few words, Feng Ren had already gotten what he wanted from Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian held Jiang Pingji in high esteem. If she wanted to subdue him, he would most likely not refuse. With this understanding, Feng Ren felt that he had completed most of his task. His mood was also cleared up. Madame Dou, who was following behind them, looked at Zhou Xi's back and secretly gave him 2 thumbs up. This young man has a bright future. Xiao Muji. To show his loyalty in front of 5 million salted fish, this Zhou Xian has a bright future. When Miao Tsang sure. Isn't the point of showing his loyalty to the streamer without knowing it? For Zhou Xian, no matter how many salted fish there were, they couldn't compare to the streamer alone. After all, Jiang Pingji was Zhou Xi's future superior. The 3 of them left Zhou Xi's experimental field and saw a group of servants from rich families waiting at the foot of the mountain. Zhou Xian saw the emblem of the Feng family on the carriage and said sensibly, Sir, you're busy. I won't bother you anymore. Feng Ren smiled and nodded. They agreed to meet next time. Madame Dou watched Feng Ren get into the carriage and put down the curtain. She was stunned for a long time. Wait. Big boss Feng Ren, have you forgotten something? Where's the document that the streamer wrote to Zhou Xian? Although she didn't scream, her emotions were still revealed. Zhou Xian saw all the changes in her expression. Madam, what's wrong? It was hot outside. Zhou Xian held an umbrella for her. The woman came back to her senses and said embarrassedly, I'm a little reluctant. It's rare to meet a famous scholar. Since Feng Ren was the idol that this body worshipped, it shouldn't be a problem to answer like this, right? Maybe there'll be a chance in the future. Zhou Xian smiled and said, Madam caught a cold and was very sick. You almost scared me. Now that you've recovered, I should prepare something to go to Xianxia temple to fulfill my vow. Why don't you go back and rest first? Don't tire yourself out. Xianxia temple? Since it's to fulfill my vow, I should be there too. Only then will I show my sincerity. The time-traveling experience only lasted for 12 hours. He wanted to see more of the real ancient times. Why would she want to waste time in the mansion? Doshi said, that's good too. Seeing the interaction between the two, many salted fish were relieved. The lucky emperor had some tricks up his sleeves. Doshi didn't expose him. But, was that the truth? Jiang Pingji rested her chin on her hand and looked at the screen. Her eyes were deep. At that moment her private message beeped. You Abba, don't worry. Jiang Pingji said, what should I worry about? You Abba. Aren't you worried that the so-called dream of 1,000 years will harm the people in the streaming room? Jiang Pingji didn't even bother to lift her eyelids. She said, Old Chief, aren't you worried? The so-called system is the culprit who turned the Federation upside down and caused the 2,000 years of war. I naturally have a reason to worry that this thing will cause trouble again. You Abba. Although that person gave you the god-slaying saber with the intention of using you to solve the defected heavenly brain, it was ultimately to clean up the problems left behind by history. The other party's standpoint is the same as yours. Naturally, he won't be a burden to you. In other words, what Jiang Pingji was worried about would not happen. Jiang Pingji glanced at him. Old Chief, you really know a lot of insider information. After a while, the system notification popped up. Your good friend, your Abba, has gone offline. Jiang Pingji snorted and muttered, coward. When she returned to the Federation one day, she would capture all the insiders and interrogate them. When she turned her gaze back to the streaming room's screen, she realized that Zhou Xian and his wife had already arrived at Xianxia Temple. Xianxia Temple was a Daoist temple. Although it was an ancient building with a long history, it didn't have a lot of followers. It wasn't until a few years ago that a Zhenren came to Xianxia Temple to practice on his own that the Taoist temple began to flourish. Chapter 1424. Many believers came here to ask for divination. Since the divination was so accurate, it was hard for the incense to not be popular. Immortal Liru was over 70 years old, but to outsiders he had white hair and a youthful complexion. He was hale and hearty and his steps were steady. Madame Dou had visited Taoist temples during holidays, but those temples were more like tourist attractions. Many Taoist priests were also there and they did not look like otherworldly masters at all. In contrast, the Xianxia temple was much quieter. The believers and Taoist priests who came and went were pious. She calmed down and followed Doshi into the Taoist temple. What do you think of this place, madam? The woman was slow to react. She smiled and said, it's very good. It's not grand, but the atmosphere is very comfortable. After that, she looked around curiously as if everything was new to her. Doshi was speechless. The two entered the main hall. The temple master Immortal Liru was also there. He was explaining the divination of a believer in a low voice. When Immortal Liru was done, Doshi stepped forward. After greeting each other, Doshi explained the purpose of his visit and asked about the requirements for the vow. Immortal Liru glanced at Madame Dou. He frowned slightly at first but then relaxed. Your wife's complexion is excellent and her aura is strong. It seems that she has passed the hurdle and will recover in a few days. Immortal Liru summoned a Taoist boy and asked him to take Madame Dou to burn incense elsewhere. The latter could not have asked for more and walked briskly. Hearing the sound of Immortal falling on the ground gradually fade away, Doshi's face suddenly darkened. Immortal Liru said, according to the divination your wife won't survive the cold. Now that the heavens have blessed her, she should be fine. Immortal, this one is definitely not the real Zhujiang. He's not some mountain spirit or wild monster. Doshi said, my wife was born in a poor and illiterate family. But this one is different. His words and actions are very different from my wife's. Immortal, do you have a way to get rid of this demon? Doshi did not care about the mountain spirit or wild monster. He just wanted his wife back. According to Immortal Liru's previous assertion, his wife would not leave this world for long. But he could not tolerate a stranger occupying her body. Don't worry, Layman Dou. Immortal Liru comforted Doshi. This is your wife's fortune. It's not a bad thing. Doshi was surprised. What do you mean? Now this young householder is a lucky star, perfected Liru said with a smile. I hereby congratulate householder Dou and his wife for growing old together. Dou Shi was stunned. Dao Master, do you mean, my wife will be back soon? Adept Lu Ru said, if I'm not wrong, that little lucky star can only stay here for 12 hours. In any case, he could be considered as half a savior. Don't try to crush him to death so easily. Dou Shi's heart, which had been hanging in suspense, finally calmed down. Not a mountain spirit but a lucky star? He was glad that he didn't act impulsively. Otherwise things would have really gone south. Naturally, Madame Dou was unaware of the conversation between Dou Shi and enlightened Master Li Ru. She sent the Daoist boy away. Seeing that there was no one around, she instantly let loose her natural instincts. She wished she could kick away the wooden clogs. These things were really difficult to wear. It smells so good. She tiptoed on one side of the courtyard wall. She could clearly smell the fragrance of flowers drifting in from outside the courtyard, but she couldn't see the scenery. Looking left and right, she saw that there was no one around. She took off the wooden clogs and climbed up the rockery. Indeed, there was a beautiful scenery outside the courtyard. These Daoist priests really know how to enjoy life. It's such a blessing to live here in retirement. It would be even better if I had a cell phone and Wi-Fi. As someone who couldn't live without a cell phone 24/7, if not for the novelty of transmigration, she really couldn't stand the time without one. In the distance, Dou Shi was speechless. She really had the temperament of a child. He waited for a while for the other party to climb down to her heart's content before calling out to her. Madame Dou didn't know what to do, but when she heard Dou Shi say that the matter was settled and they could go home, she believed him. On the way back, Dou Shi saw that she was extremely curious about the market outside, so he found an excuse to take her for a stroll. Madame Dou mumbled softly. A good man who's willing to buy things for his wife. What a rare and endangered species. Dou Shi was indeed a very good person. No matter what small item she fancied, he would happily pay for it. Of course, she didn't buy anything expensive. Most of them were ornaments, sachets, or snacks from the stalls. In ancient times, the market was poor and there weren't many goods. Women only shopped for the atmosphere and they got bored after a while. Dou Shi saw that she looked a little tired, so he offered to take a break at the tea house. What are you thinking about, madam? Dou Shi saw that she stirred the tea but didn't drink it, looking absent-minded. Indeed, the woman didn't drink tea. Tea in this era was a dark cuisine. All kinds of seasonings were used to boil it and the taste was very strange. I'm thinking about Feng Ren's declaration of war. Her mouth moved faster than her brain. When she realized what she had said, she hurriedly tried to salvage the situation. She silently held her vest tightly and looked pitiful. The salted fish in the live broadcast room was angry that she didn't fight for it. It wasn't easy for her to survive until now, but this lucky emperor actually blew up her own vest. Dou Shi ignored the way the woman addressed Feng Ren, and his sharp ears heard the word, declaration of war. His heart skipped a beat. He suddenly understood something and almost dropped the teacup. I didn't say anything just now. Dou Shi looked at her. Although it was a familiar face, her expression was unusually unfamiliar. This person was more lively than his own daughter. Looking at her, little lucky star was really young. What did Madame say just now? Dou Shi looked puzzled, as if he really didn't hear anything he shouldn't have. The woman coughed softly. I didn't say anything just now. Dou Shi accompanied her as they strolled to many places outside. The sun gradually darkened the horizon. After returning to the residence, Dou Shi asked the kitchen to prepare a rather sumptuous meal. The chef in the kitchen muttered in a low voice. It's not the new year, could it be that something good happened? Although Dou Shi was rich, he wasn't extravagant. As a son of a peasant family, his style was still very simple. Now, however, he was serving a distinguished guest. The kitchen staff were naturally surprised. Dou Shi saw that the woman's expression was as usual, and her dining etiquette was also good. He secretly thought to himself, Lucky Star's living conditions in the past must not be poor. Unbeknownst to him, the woman proudly posted a bullet screen in the live broadcast room. There's still half an hour to 12 hours. I didn't blow up my vest, isn't I amazing? The salted fish all gave her likes. Amazing. Jiang Pingji was speechless. Forget it, let's not expose her. Dou Shi didn't mean to hurt anyone, so there shouldn't be too much to worry about. In fact, Jiang Pingji didn't have to worry about the woman. Dream of 1,000 years was a welfare activity, so naturally there were sound protective measures. Apart from the necessary prompts, once the participants were threatened, they would be sent back in advance. If the experiencer did anything that would destroy the bad guy, the experience would also be forcibly ended. Not everyone who participated in the activity was so unlucky to meet Feng Ren and Daoist, two shrewd people, right off the bat. Chapter 1425. After dinner, the woman found that the dream of 1,000 years activity had entered its last 20 minutes. She felt relieved and a little regretful at the same time. Her goal was to touch the streamer's hand. She didn't expect to be placed in Yangshan in Shangyang County, which was several days away from Xiangyang County in Fengyi County. Thinking of this, her loyal expression showed some regret. Daoist saw it. "Would you like to accompany me for a walk in the courtyard?" Daoist asked for her opinion. Perhaps because there were only 20 minutes left, the woman was not as frightened as she was at the beginning. Instead, she responded with a smile. "Let's walk after dinner. I'm 99 years old, of course I have to go." The wooden clogs fell on the cobblestone path with a crisp and rhythmic sound. The woman didn't deliberately fall behind or beside Daoist. Instead, she overtook him by half a body's length. There was a small garden in the Dou mansion, complete with rockery and flowers. The overall layout looked very elegant. Daoist couldn't help laughing when he saw that she couldn't even walk properly. He couldn't help but have some funny thoughts. "I'm Dou from Yangshan, also known as Xianxia. May I take the liberty to ask, what is the name of this girl who is more beautiful than a flower?" The woman's heart skipped a beat. She turned to look at Daoist. Seeing his smiling eyes, she became more and more uncertain. At this time, the system considerately gave her a reminder. "System, high warning. Don't say anything you shouldn't. If necessary, the system will silence you." In addition to this warning, the system also thoughtfully gave her other options. The woman chose one of them. She answered with a stiff smile, "I'm already married. Where did you come from, lecher?" Daoist laughed and didn't continue to make things difficult for her. The two chatted for a while and went to the water pavilion near the garden. This water pavilion was where Daoist read in the shade in the summer. On weekdays, servants would take care of it on time. One could see the pond when they opened the window. "The water pavilion is built here. Won't we get bitten by mosquitoes in the summer?" The woman murmured. She didn't see Daoist turn around and take something from the treasure pavilion. When she looked away, she saw Daoist holding a fuxi zither in his arms. The woman didn't know much about zither, but she felt that ancient zither were antiques and definitely not bad. "You want to play the zither?" the woman asked Daoist. Daoist nodded and asked with a smile, "Do you want to play? A phoenix seeking a phoenix?" The woman rolled her eyes and thought about it. She found that she didn't know any other ancient zither songs except for the phoenix seeking for a phoenix. Daoist declined with a smile. "This song. This husband is not very familiar with it. It's better not to embarrass myself in front of madam." The woman said, "Then play what you're good at. You can play anything." Even if he played blindly, she wouldn't be able to tell if it was good or bad. "Since that's the case, your husband will embarrass himself," Daoist said with a smile. Before he played, he gave him a gift. A look of surprise appeared in the woman's eyes. "For me?" Daoist nodded. "Yes, it's for you." It was a palm-sized box. The carvings on the outside of the box were exquisite and delicate, and the box exuded a light and pleasant fragrance. The woman gently opened it and saw a beautiful piece of jade lying inside. Even though she didn't know much about jade, she was still mesmerized by it. "So pretty," the woman said dryly. As a workaholic who had graduated from the National College entrance examination for many years, she felt for the first time that she was clumsy. She racked her brains but could not think of a suitable compliment. If it was her before and after the National College entrance examination, she would definitely be able to speak eloquently and not embarrass herself in front of the ancients. After Daoist burned incense and washed his hands, he played a song. The woman could not tell whether it was good or bad, but she felt that the tune was very pleasant. She sat sideways next to the piano table and supported her chin with one hand. The sudden drowsiness made her head nod bit by bit. "Kamu. 3, 2, 1. Dream of 1,000 years, activity has ended. Thank you for your participation and cooperation." "Thank you. Oh, I slept so well." The cute girl lifted the quilt in a daze. Suddenly, something sharp poked her hand. She touched it casually and felt a cold box. He suddenly woke up and grabbed it. When she looked at it, she exclaimed, "Oh my God. She sat up in shock. All the hair on her body stood on end. Her muddled mind instantly woke up, and the memories from before she went to sleep flooded her. This isn't this. She looked at the thing in her hand in a daze. She carefully opened the box and found a beautiful piece of jade lying inside. Yes, it's for you. Daoist's voice echoed in her mind. She slapped her cheeks and suddenly had the illusion that her identity had been exposed. She slid down the Simmons bed and ran to the computer desk. The computer screen was still on the Empress's live broadcast forum interface. She took a look at the forum and saw that the number of replies had skyrocketed to millions. There were so many messages and she did not have time to read them one by one. After thinking about it, she sat on the computer chair and turned on the front camera of her phone. She held the box in her hand and took a selfie with a smile. Then she used Photoshop to cover her face and the decorations in the room and uploaded the picture to the forum. Original poster. I am the lucky girl that you all envy and hate. Although it is a little regretful that I did not successfully touch the host's little hand, I also received a precious gift. Look, don't the box and the beautiful jade in my hand look super familiar? Ah, are you envious? She was afraid that others would not catch the main point, so she simply drew a red circle on the box in the photo to mark the main point. Many salted fish were eager to try the dream of 1,000 years activity, but there were also salted fish who were worried. What were they worried about? They were worried that the so-called transmigration was a lie and that they might not be able to return after transmigrating. What was the difference between this and murder? The original poster's post had not been updated, and many onlookers expressed their deep concern. 12 hours had passed and they actually saw the original poster's reply on the post. Their first reaction was, very good, the original poster is still alive and the transmigration activity should be real. Their second reaction was, F***ck. Envy, jealousy and hate. They wish they could raise a torch and roast this fresh and juicy lucky girl. The news of the lucky girl's successful return successfully rushed to the top of Weibo, suppressing countless celebrities in the entertainment industry. Apart from the onlookers who admired the lucky girl's luck, the rest of the onlookers raised the torch of jealousy and burned it. At the same time, Daoist's wife gradually woke up and revealed an expression that Daoist was familiar with. Zhongguang. Daoist's wife pinched her eyebrows and felt a little better. Madam, how do you feel? Daoist revealed a look of joy and excitedly grabbed the other party's hand. Only then did he realize that the gift he gave to little lucky girl had disappeared. He did not think too much about it and hurriedly called for a doctor to take his wife's pulse. The doctor was also surprised. A while ago he was certain that she would not live for more than half a month, but now her pulse was strong and healthy, not at all like a dying patient. Daoist's wife told Daoist in private, I had a dream not long ago. What dream? Chapter 1426. The ancients were still in awe of gods and ghosts, and Daoist was no exception. Hearing his wife talk about this dream, he was even more convinced. He couldn't help but rejoice. Madam has the help of a lucky star. Daoist told his wife about what happened during the day. Madame Daoist was pleasantly surprised. In that case, we should set up a longevity tablet for this benefactor and worship him every day. Daoist nodded. There was something he didn't say. He felt that he was about to get lucky. Although little Lucky Star did not say everything, but according to the information he inadvertently revealed, Feng Ren's sudden visit was definitely not what he had said. Perhaps the Duke of Lanting really wanted to recruit and promote him. If that was the case, he would really be able to fulfill his ambitions and bring honor to his ancestors. After waiting anxiously for a few days, Feng Ren went to the mansion again. After the small talk, Feng Ren really asked him if he wanted to become an official. Daoist's heart raced and he barely held back his excitement. He spoke of his ambition in a reserved manner, indirectly responding to his plan to become an official. Feng Ren smiled and stroked his beard. Duke Lanting has long admired Zhongguang's talent and wants to recruit him. Are you willing to work for him? Daoist stood up and bowed. He said resolutely, I am willing to serve you faithfully. When he received Jiang Pingji's personal letter of conquest, his fingertips were still trembling. What did it mean to have joy after extreme misfortune? This was it. Previously, Daoist was still worried about his wife's illness. Now that his wife had recovered from her illness and had a bright future, it was simply too wonderful. While Daoist was packing his luggage and preparing to head to Xiangyang district to take up his post, Jiang Pingji's plans for the public toilet and breeding farm were also put on the agenda. She took into account the economic and road conditions of various places and circled 10 places to set up breeding farms. In comparison, the cost of inspecting public toilets was much lower, and the number was much larger. Jiang Pingji planned to build a public toilet in a crowded area. Not only did she have to choose the location, but she also had to pay attention to the shape of the toilet that blended in with the surrounding environment so that it wouldn't look too out of place. Of course, considering the current trend, Jiang Pingji was even stricter with the women's toilets. Not only did she have to ensure privacy when she went to the toilet, but she also had to prevent hooligans from intentionally offending her. Therefore, it was necessary to arrange for people to guard the women's toilets. Naturally, the maintenance of the public toilets also required people. This way he could increase the number of jobs. Although this job was dirty, smelly, and tiring, it could earn enough money to support a family. Naturally, there was no need to worry that no one would want to do it. Jiang Pingji bit her pen and tried to point out the areas that needed attention in the old public toilet. To think that I, the commander of the Federation Army, have to worry about the problem of public toilets. When I was in the Federation, it was none of my business even if the public toilets of the department were blocked. I'm really regressing. Jiang Pingji held the pen in her mouth and grumbled. She hadn't been able to sleep well for the past few days because of the issue with the toilet and the farm. You manage the weather, the earth, and the people's daily needs. How is she a farm owner? She's clearly a full-time nanny. Jiang Pingji lay on the mat beside the table like a piece of streaky pork on a chopping board. She put her hands behind her head and opened the bamboo scroll on her face to block the sunlight. She propped one foot up and placed the other on the table. Her bare feet dangled in the air. The moment Qiguan Rang entered, he saw his lord's demeanor as if it had been eaten by a dog. His eyebrows twitched, but he didn't say anything in the end. Not to mention women, even men rarely disregarded etiquette like this. Greetings, my lord. Qiguan Rang bowed. Jiang Pingji blew at the bamboo scroll and realized that it wouldn't budge. She then lifted her hand and removed it. Wenjing? What's the matter? Jiang Pingji yawned and sat up lazily. He still looked weak and lethargic. Has my lord been very sleepy lately? Qiguan Rang asked tentatively. He didn't have a chance to feel Jiang Pingji's pulse, so he could only beat around the bush. It wasn't a good sign that his lord, who had always been lively and energetic, suddenly felt sleepy and liked to sleep. Jiang Pingji rested her chin on her hand and muttered, Wing, I haven't slept for 4 or 5 days. Do you think I'm sleepy? Although she didn't have dark circles under her eyes, it was true that she stayed up late. For so many days she was either out on an inspection trip or staying indoors to plan and draw. She also had to rack her brains to think of problems that might occur after the implementation of the plan and come up with countermeasures in advance. When she was busy, it wasn't as easy for her as Qiguan Rang and the others. Qiguan Rang and the others were all ordinary people. Their physical endurance was limited. It was impossible for them to be busy day and night. Although it was said that working overtime was extremely tiring, it wasn't really tiring when the working hours were calculated. Feng Zhen and Yang Si could even get together and drink. Jiang Pingji was at a disadvantage. She was in good physical condition, so she didn't show any signs of exhaustion even if she stayed up late to fight. In addition, she often skipped work, which gave people the impression that she didn't do proper work. Before Qiguan Rang showed a distressed and disapproving look, Jiang Pingji asked him again, Wenjing, is there anything? Qiguan Rang presented a thick booklet to her. Jiang Pingji picked it up and glanced at it. This is Wenbin's handwriting. Is there any progress on his side? Han Yu's work for the past year was to sort out the old laws and compile new ones, such as the previous marriage law and the child protection law that he was busy with. As long as the war was not urgent, Jiang Pingji didn't plan to let Han Yu go to the battlefield again. It wasn't that Han Yu's military talent wasn't good. On the contrary, Han Yu almost killed Yang Si and made Jiang Pingji suffer a great loss. His talent was beyond doubt. However, Jiang Pingji felt that everyone had their own platform to show their talents. Compared to the battlefield, it was more suitable for Han Yu. So far, Jiang Pingji couldn't find a suitable legal talent other than Han Yu. Han Yu outshone the others. Of course, if Han Yu preferred the battlefield, Jiang Pingji wouldn't stop him. The battlefield was risky, but he could accumulate merits quickly. Qiguan Rang said, Yes, but Wenbin is not in good spirits. He hasn't slept for several days. Let him rest first. Looking at the dark circles under Han Yu's eyes, Han Yu would die suddenly if he continued to practice immortality. Qiguan Rang didn't want anything to happen to Han Yu, so he coaxed him to go home to sleep. Since Jiang Pingji and Qiguan Rang had a showdown, Qiguan Rang had placed Han Yu and Wei Ci at the top of his heart. They were both his precious eggs. For the sake of his precious egg, he was willing to personally run an errand. Jiang Pingji carefully looked at the first-generation manuscript that Qiguan Rang handed to her. Her brows loosened and furrowed from time to time. She looked serious. "My lord, how is it?" Jiang Pingji said, "There are still some shortcomings. Many parts are a bit cumbersome. Laws are different from other things. The parts that should be simplified, and the parts that should be detailed. There is no room for lawbreakers to take advantage of. However, according to the standards of the first-generation manuscript, Wenbin didn't disappoint me. Wenjing, go back and tell him to stay at home and recuperate. He will come back to see me in 3 to 5 days." Qiguan Rang said, "Yes." After Qiguan Rang left, Jiang Pingji went to the bookshelf and took out a brand new book. He called the maid to grind the ink. Jiang Pingji made a copy of Han Yu's manuscript. She planned to proofread, correct, and supplement the parts with the audience in the streaming room. He will die suddenly sooner or later. I've never been so hardworking in my previous life. Keep working. I'll be a slave for the rest of my life.